With the holidays creeping up faster than that thing climbing your basement stairs, it's easy to succumb to that chilling weather and just let your facial hair grow. But trust me, no matter how busy you are fighting off the icy grip of cold, dead fingers, our friends at Manscaped have a simple solution. That's the Chairman Pro package. Their Chairman Pro electric razor is armed with not one, but two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. And believe you me, with the skin-safe 4-blade foil and the skin-safe stubble trimmer, not to mention the Flex Adjust technology, your skin is safe from all kinds of things, not just the thing haunting your basement. But if you're still feeling scared, the Chairman Pro package comes with two holiday bonuses. Manscaped's Power Shave Gel and their Face Shave Soother, all packed with skin-soothing ingredients that hydrate your skin and protect against things like redness, irritation, ingrown hairs, basement demons, razor bumps. Whether you're looking for that perfect holiday gift for the man in your life or just for yourself, no shame, look no further than the Chairman Pro package. Go get yourself 20% off plus free shipping with the code PrettyDark at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code PrettyDark at manscaped.com. Thanks to Manscaped, nobody has to fear the holidays.
No matter how much he cries, no matter how much he begs, never feed him after midnight.
You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders
and under our beds
and in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
Pretty dark.
How many octaves deeper is my voice right now?
You know, it's some days we show up prepared, some days we show up unprepared, some days
You're a mean one.
We're
Mr.
just
Gremlin.
champing at the bit, ready to hit the ground. Running. It's not every day that we're both sick.
Yeah.
Or
and I mean,
relatively sick in
most days
in our
I
own
feel
special way.
You're right. Most days I feel sick. I'm just not always actually sick.
We're both coughing our heads off. We're both sneezing. It's going to be so fun.
Happy holidays.
Love the holidays. So glad they're here.
Been saving my voice for this all day.
Wonderful.
I've barely spoken this morning.
This is simultaneously the latest and the earliest we've recorded.
Latest in the week, earliest in the day.
Yes, precisely. But we are going to get it done. We got a lot of show to get to, so let's just dive right in.
It's our final 2024
That's right.
gathering of the Darklings.
Last one. Welcome to ye old spooky Yuletide, y'all. My name's Christian.
My name is Kaylin.
And you're listening to That's Pretty Dark. Well, we've all arrived, like we said, at the end of the year, doing our damnedest to soak up as much gremlin goo and holiday horror as we can stomach. It's a time for wish lists and shopping sprees, and if you just aren't quite sure what to get your loved ones, maybe, just maybe, take yourself a walk down the road less traveled and meander through that market dimly lit, where secret marvels seem to whisper at you from the shadows, promising to change your life. But take care to choose your gifts wisely. Otherwise, you just might have a gremlin of a time.
Hear, hear.
And that's exactly what happens to one man named Rand Peltzer. Your everyday average, self-assured white man who takes a walk through Chinatown. But if you would allow me to immediately amend that statement. The events that unfold do not happen to Rand Peltzer. They happen because of Rand Peltzer.
He is the impetus.
Yes.
The Krampus?
The Krampus?
I don't know. I tried.
It's a good effort. It's A for effort.
Thanks.
This here is going to be a soapbox that I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way up top real quick. Rand, in my opinion, is no better than an absent father, despite how much he thinks of himself. He lives his life out on the road, attempting to peddle his wares, chasing old dreams of becoming a famous inventor, even at the peril of his own family's financial situation and the inevitable foreclosure of their home. So, this man takes an unknown species from another man who warns him not to, and then brings it home to his family, his son, who currently supports the family, And then Rand makes absolutely no effort to understand this creature or take responsibility for it, and then f***s off to an invention convention for the rest of the film, completely missing the consequences of his actions by what seems to be hundreds of miles.
I mean, it's classic hapless 90s, 80s parent situation.
Yeah.
Just doing their best, throwing some stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks, sometimes not sticking around to even see what sticks.
Emphasis on the sticking or the not sticking.
It's also
around.
I don't want to know what sticks to the walls in this house, but also it's another case of an inventor father,
right?
Which was another staple in 80s and 90s kids media, because
classic
Belle's dad, Casper's dad, the inimitable Wayne Zelinsky of the Honey We Shrunk series.
Yeah.
They were all inventors.
Stanley Yelnats the Third.
Stanley Yelnats the Third. They were
Not
all
the last
inventors.
time I'm going to reference him.
They were all seeking to make the world better and somewhat overlooking the consequences to their own kin.
So my question to everyone, including you, is who is the worst pretty dark role model? Grandpa Joe or Rand Peltzer?
Wow. I mean, we could probably have several folks in that running.
I know.
There are some questionable guardians in the Hey Arnold universe.
Oh, yeah, you better believe.
Many questionable guardians in the Are You Afraid of the Dark universe.
That's Sardo. Emphasis on the dough. I just had to say my piece here because Rand is the narrator of this story, introducing the story here with the film's opening scene and then leaving us off with one final warning at the film's close.
Friends, let me introduce myself. Peltzer's the name, Rand Peltzer.
Rand
That's me there
is
on
an
the
inventor,
corner.
but boy, he's sure got a story to tell. And it all begins when he wanders into Chinatown one dark night, trying to move a little merchandise and maybe find a Christmas present for his kid. When he follows the grandson of a humble shopkeeper into his store underground, where the old man stands waiting for customers, smoking his long stem pipe and glaring at Peltzer with his glass eye. And you called him Mr. Wing in part 1. Technically, there is a Mr. Wing in the Gremlins universe, but it's from the cartoon, I believe. So I don't think this is canon that his name is Mr. Wing, because even in the credits, he's credited as grandfather.
Interesting.
This threw me for a loop, so I just looked
I saw
into
it
it.
multiple places on the internet. Multiple articles referenced him as Mr. Wing, so I just went with it.
I think that's the general consensus that he's Mr. Wing. So I think maybe he is given a name in the cartoon. There's a series for kids. And I've always wanted to just get lost in this store.
We love our curiosity shops.
Can't get enough of them. That's also a pretty big staple of the 90s. It's just these big junk-filled rooms that they have all these hidden gems.
The whispers of mysterious things.
Exactly.
Everywhere you look.
It's packed full of all manner of interesting artifacts, as Rand calls them. Candles burning everywhere, vintage lamps and statues. Taxidermied animals and other pelts strung up by their tails randomly. Tarantulas, jewelry, golden dragons, clay jars. If you're looking for it, it's probably here. But you know the one thing they don't have?
What don't they have?
Little thing called the bathroom buddy.
Oh, God.
One of Rand's many horrible little inventions that he tries to sell to this extremely uninterested
huge convenient invention. That made me laugh. I know that was the joke, but it's so convenient and ginormous.
It's the invention of the century, friends. It eliminates the need to carry heavy luggage and things when you travel. And you got yourself your shaving mirror. You got yourself your toothbrush. You got yourself a toothpick. You got toenail clippers. You got nail file. You got yourself a dental mirror.
It's also a trope of these times. It's like on TV tropes, they call it everything is a Swiss Army knife or something like that.
Yeah.
Because this has everything in this little box.
Fantastic ideas for a fantastic world. I make the illogical logical.
Don't we all?
Hey, that's what we're trying to do here too.
I sure do my damnedest.
And the entire time he's giving his spiel, Rand keeps getting distracted by the sound of a small animal somewhere in the room that he thinks will make the perfect Christmas gift for his son.
A Furby. They're always yapping.
Yes, a Furby.
Furbish and such.
This Mogwai,
What's he doing?
this cute little creature that makes cute little sounds and sings cute little songs. And although the shopkeeper refuses to sell the Mogwai because it comes with such great responsibility that Rand and his all-American family aren't even close to ready for, the shopkeeper's grandson meets Rand out back and takes the $200.
What about your grandfather?
Forget what he said. He's crazy. We need the money. Now, come on. You want it or not?
I want it.
But just as Rand leaves Chinatown in a whimsical, glowing blur of slow motion, this kid delivers those 3 simple rules we all practically know by heart. Keep him out of the sunlight. Don't get him wet. And whatever you do, never, never feed him after midnight.
But where? Midnight where?
That's a good question.
We don't know.
But dude, seriously, salesmen who won't take no for an answer are some of my least favorite types of people. Did I ever tell you about the gutter salesman I had at my house?
I don't know. Maybe.
I just wanted a simple quote for a gutter over my porch. Just, so I don't have to walk through the buckets of rainwater when it's raining. Something very, very simple. But this dude, he couldn't give me a quote for anything unless he surveyed the entire house and gave me a quote for the entire house, which was an insane amount of money. And then he came inside and gave me his little salesman spiel and wouldn't leave.
Yeah, if you let them in, it's like a vampire.
He was like a vampire. Sucked every bit of energy I had that afternoon. I was so busy that day too. I was like, I'm not signing anything today. I already told you that.
Jeez.
He wouldn't take no for an answer, and it was starting to actually make me deeply uncomfortable.
It's one thing when you're in their space and you can just say, peace out, thanks, no thanks, bye. But when they're in yours, that's a whole other story.
I was very sweaty.
I was very sweaty.
I was very sweaty. I was like beginning to see spots. I was going into like survival mode. It was very primal.
Yeah.
It was scary.
You're
I was like, I'm about
territory.
to like freak
Christian.
out on this dude. Yeah, it was weird. I don't like that feeling. It was a bad time. I had a bad time that day. And he was very upset when I made him leave. Some of Rand's other inventions include this like chicken-headed egg breaker, the Peltzer peeler juicer, an automatic orange juicer, the smokeless ashtray, which seems to be the smokeful ashtray.
It reminds me so much of Zelensky and all his mailbox.
Dude, I know.
God, I just wanted all of his inventions growing up, though. That's the difference.
An automatic hammer, this spin wheel of death, fly swatter type thing, a coffee maker that mostly produces sludge, this really cool remote walkie-talkie type thing for the phone, which I think is essentially a cell phone.
Ahead of its time.
Conceptually, yeah. And this batter mixer that's eventually used to make gingerbread cookies and kill a gremlin at the same time.
That's what I look for when I'm looking for appliances.
Could this kill a gremlin?
Could this kill a gremlin?
And how
yes,
would it do it?
It belongs in my kitchen.
How well? Yeah.
How quickly?
How effective would this be? Yeah, yeah. These are all things really to consider.
They should list that on the packaging,
shopping
honestly.
for new appliances.
That would be really helpful.
That would be a really great marketing scheme.
We buy nostalgia,
for the new Gremlins.
corporations.
The Gremlins 3.
That's what we millennials spend our money on. And groceries,
Feeding both our adult selves and our inner child selves.
They both got to eat.
Both got to eat. They're both starved. Well, much like the Gremlins movie itself, I have structured this episode into 2 sections strongly influenced by It's a Wonderful Life and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Or, to have us a little fun, What's So Wonderful About Life Anyway? And For an Invasion of Little Green Men.
Nice.
The support beams of this structure come from an article I found on Geeks and Gamers by Alex Gurzo called Gremlins is a Darker Version of It's a Wonderful Life.
On the nose.
No beating around the bush. In his opening remarks, Alex wets the reader's gremlins. I mean, their whistles.
Gremlins is a filmmaking marvel. Every detail is perfect. The casting, the character development, so economical. The pacing and the way that the Mogwai/Gremlin mythology unfolds. The unbelievable score. Not just the music itself, but the way it's used. The camera work, the mise-en-scene, it's all incredible.
And I'm listening to that score right now as we record.
I still am amazed by your ability to do that. As much as I listen to music 24/7, I can't listen while we're recording. That's the one time I can't listen to music.
It helps me just stay focused, like in the moment. It's like that's the padding around me in the room.
That's how it is for me when I drive.
Yeah.
I have to drive everywhere all the time because motion sickness, and I don't know, growing up, I was the friend with the car, so I was always the driver.
Yeah, me too.
Always, ever driver. But that's what music is for me. It's the insulation for the rest of the world.
What follows in this article, Alex's article, is a side-by-side comparison of Gremlins and It's a Wonderful Life, much to my immense enjoyment. We learned in part 1 from you how these 2 films were connected via history and inspiration, but I didn't fully realize just how intertwined the 2 films were. You may have said some of this, and I missed it, but Bedford Falls becomes Kingston Falls. Henry Potter became Mrs. Deagle, and Bailey's Building and Loan became Union Savings and Trust.
Yes.
And funny enough, an unrelated Forbes article strengthened the connection between these two fictional banks, explaining that building and loans were common in the 1920s. But by the end of World War II, most of these were converted into savings and loans. But I also read that there was a savings and loans crisis in the 1980s, which resulted in many of them being closed or being acquired by bank holding companies. So it could be that the Union Savings and Loan in Kingston Falls was bought by Mrs. Deagle, who then changed the name to Union Savings and Trust, adding an ironic layer of insult to injury, with a pun on trust in a way.
I can see that.
You can trust me. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting connection. And Alex refers to these films as both a small town Christmas fable. But he makes the distinction that Gremlins is the one with a decided lack of heroes. To be more specific, Alex suggests that the Kingston Falls of Gremlins is a Bedford Falls where Henry Potter won.
You got it?
Sure, kid. Whatever you say. Hey, listen, thanks. And have a Merry Christmas.
But despite such economic straits, Kingston Falls is in full Christmas swing. The town is so picturesque that Gilmore Girls could have used this set, I swear.
They were on the Warner Brothers lot. This was the Universal lot, but they are very similar.
They seem to be quite similar.
I wondered. I even had it in my watch notes when I watched a year ago. Check if this is Warner Brothers lot. It was Universal, but close enough.
What did I read? There were a few other films there that were mentioned somewhere, and one stuck out to me as like, that was filmed there? Holy shit. It wasn't Back to the Future. It was
yeah, we already talked about that. And then, we didn't tell our Darkling friends, but what was it? 10 minutes after we got off the call recording Gremlins Part 1, you sent me a screenshot of how your feed just put like a side-by-side of like Back to the Future and Gremlins.
My Facebook feed was like, the same lot was used to film both movies. I was like, you said, calm down, Facebook. I couldn't believe that. There are Christmas trees for sale, snowball fights in the square, Corey Feldman in a Christmas tree costume. The billboard over the town of Rockin' Ricky Rialto is an obvious Indiana Jones reference.
Yeah, right up top, they get their Indiana Jones
immediately. It's like the first
Good
thing you
old
see
Indy.
Almost. And of course, you mentioned the movie theater marquee promoting Watch the Skies and A Boy's Life. It's all right there, right at the beginning.
Spielberg has to do it. Do it to it.
Got to.
If I were him, I'd probably do the same thing.
The local landlord, Mrs. Deagle, whom we later learn is only rich because she married an infamous stock swindler.
That's how it always goes.
She has such a tight financial grip on the citizens of Kingston Falls that practically everyone is on the verge of bankruptcy or foreclosure. And this includes a family of 4 with small children who can't quite yet make rent because the mother and father just recently started new jobs. And the Peltzers themselves are also having a rough time getting by. Mr. Peltzer is a failed inventor, as we know, just like Stanley Yelnats III. Mrs. Peltzer doesn't work, and the whole family is supported by their son, Billy, who works as a teller at the bank, which is also owned by Mrs. Deagle.
What a guy, Billy.
Doing his damnedest.
Keeping it all together.
Setting aside his own dreams. It's unfair.
That's the latchkey way.
Alex, in his Geeks and Gamers article, further speculates that not even Billy Peltzer's heroism can stand up to that of George Bailey's from It's a Wonderful Life. But only because Billy doesn't have the position at work or the standing in society that George Bailey had. The only people that could have stood up to Mrs. Deagle are Mr. Corbin, who runs the bank, and the bank's 23-year-old VP and frenemy of Billy, Gerald Hopkins.
That made me a little bit sick.
I know. I'm 23 years old.
A decade
looking
younger
like
than
he's
us.
35, though.
He did. He looked much older. So maybe that's the joke. But back in the day, back in the 80s, 23 was like, yeah, you should be VP of something by now.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. It's like Elf. I'm 26 years old.
I got nothing to show for it.
It's like, dude,
you're young. You're so young. I got to get out of the flow. I could do the whole movie, guys. I could do the whole thing. Are you ready?
Alex continues.
The only one who could do something about it is Gerald Hopkins, the vice president of the bank. However, Gerald doesn't have Billy's morality and instead takes his inspiration from Miss Deagle. This is the scary result of the Potters and the Deagles winning. They influence the next generation to succeed using their callous methods. While he's a huge jerk, it's almost hard to blame Gerald for being the way he is, as he sees all the good-hearted people around him struggling while the ruthless prosper.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I feel like, too, because when you aren't necessarily concerned with being the best person you can be, if you are focused on succeeding in life and having a good career and like setting yourself up for some kind of financial stability, which no one around you has.
Right.
And you see how miserable they are, and it's very scary. I could see, someone really holding, like latching onto that as like a way to be.
It's kind of
a way
funny.
to survive.
It's kind of funny. I was thinking about this yesterday because I was at the store. I was buying like last minute Christmas gifts, and I was talking to the cashier, and it's like a store I go into a lot. So like I kind of know the guy and we chat, whatever.
Spencer's?
Yeah, Spencer's. No, the gift spot.
Is it Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh yeah, the Chuck E. Cheese. But he was telling me that someone maybe this summer had come in and was paying in all coins, because I was like, I paid in cash, which I don't normally do, and I was like getting my change back, and he was telling me that someone had come in that summer and paid with all coins and watched him count $40 in change in all coins. He said it took him like 20 minutes. He had to get somebody else to come help him with the register. It was like a line. There was a whole line in the store while he was trying to count this change. And he said when the guy opened his wallet, he had cash in his wallet. And he was just smiling, watching this dude count change. And I was like, so it was just a power trip? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, thank God I never saw him again. I haven't seen him again. But like, just a power trip. Just because he could. He made this poor cashier on a busy night count his change to $40. And I was like, so I have this conversation with the cashier. And I get in my car and I'm like pulling out of the parking lot. And I'm thinking to myself, because I was confused when this cashier told me he had cash in his wallet, I was like, did he not realize he had cash in his wallet? Like, I was genuinely confused. And he was like, no, he had like a shit-eating grin on his face. And I was like,
what an asshole.
it truly, I am so like divorced from that mindset that it truly did not even occur to me for that to be a thing someone would purposely do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
like
wild
that
stuff.
is so far beyond any instinct that I have. Granted, I am on the extreme other end of like people pleasing, but still, to knowingly just fuck up someone's day because you can, I don't get the impulse. I truly do not understand the impulse. But a lot of people do. And as I was pulling out of the parking lot, I was thinking to myself, those are the people that get ahead.
Unfortunately.
They get ahead by pushing other people down. Like, that's how the world works. That's how the world works. Like, Bo told us this.
It's like, what a weird way to get off, though, because it's like,
I'm
going to pay for my things, but I'm going to pay very complicatedly. Like, it's like, I'm not going to just shoplift or something. I'm just going to pay for it in a very inconvenient way for you,
I'm going to participate in the system.
Cashier.
And the only person that it affects is this cashier in front of me.
Somebody who's just trying to get home and eat dinner. Like,
but
that's ridiculous.
But the lack of empathy.
It's like, if you want to hold people up, go throw yourself off a bridge on the interstate.
That would do it.
Go stop traffic for a while.
That would do
using your own corpse. That would be a great way to
If those are the types of impulses
society.
that you have, maybe consider a different method. I don't know.
Throw yourself down an elevator shaft. That's just really what you want to do.
If your goal in life is to inconvenience other people, I don't know. But talking about it now, it's like, it amazes me that there are people that go through life like that, but they often go through life better off than I am.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
So upsetting.
I know no one wants to hear this around the holidays, and we're all hoping for good cheer, and we're hoping that Scrooge, changes his ways.
Goodwill toward men.
We all hope for that, but the bitter truth, the cold hard reality that so often finds us in our late stage capitalistic existence is people are out for themselves. And if you don't
looking out for number one,
kind of look out for number one yourself, then you are very likely to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And it seems that way in Kingston Falls too.
Well, we got to talk about it because it's in almost every Christmas movie. Like, that's what Christmas movies are sort of made of, is these...
Beginning with A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, A Christmas Carol, right. It's just this juxtaposition between the ultra wealthy and the ultra poor, and how the wealthy do very little to help, as a general rule in fiction and in reality.
Hey friends, it's a class war that we're in.
Yeah.
Not a culture war, remember that.
And all the expectation of having to spend money and buy gifts and everything, too, is just extra hard on people who have none but still want to have a pleasant time. The people who are good-hearted and can enjoy a wholesome holiday with their family can't afford to.
Right.
The people who can afford to are soulless assholes who
pretty much
couldn't enjoy it if they tried, like Scrooged,
And all the rest of us are just somewhere in between, like desperate to have a good time, trying not to support
Yeah.
the holiday times of those ultra wealthy, but often stuck in a rock and a hard place where if we want to get gifts for our family and friends, the choice is get it here on Amazon.
I was about to say, yeah, you're feeding the beast if you order it. And I do.
I know.
I do.
We both do because again, we're stuck in the middle.
What do you do?
What do you do? It's so difficult.
What do you do?
I shopped small this year where I could. I went to our own curiosity oddities markets that we've had around this time of year locally.
Nice.
I encourage you all to do the same. Although by the time you're hearing this, if you don't have your Christmas gifts yet.
And you need all your New Year's gifts.
Yeah, you can get all your New Year's gifts from local businesses.
So, while Billy's unresponsible father is out chasing his tired old dreams and making no money, Billy is forfeiting his own dreams of becoming a comic book artist to work a day job that barely pays enough to keep the wolves from his door. Wolves that look a heck of a lot like Mrs. Deagle. And just like Stanley Yelnats IV, Billy's life seems to be made up of a series of misfortunes. First, his dad sucks. Then his car freezes up.
And the cars know. I mean, I know the Gremlins reference car seizing up.
Yeah,
like,
we're about to get
yes,
to
that's
that,
a thing. But like, our cars know when we really least need them to act a fool, and that's when they're going to do
If
it.
it can happen, it will happen.
The Gremlins know, I should say.
And then he almost loses his job because his dog Barney supposedly broke Mrs. Deagle's Bavarian snowman. And Barney attacks her when she comes to confront Billy and threatens to murder his dog by sticking him in her spin dryer on high heat.
Yeah.
She's very Wicked Witch of the West about this.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Just tell me how much I owe you. I'll be more than happy to.
I don't want money. I want your dog.
And your little dog, too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Elphaba. But she was also just misunderstood.
Wicked was great.
Was fantastic.
I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for part 2.
And not only that, I feel like we've got the Curiosity Shop, we've got the Inventor Dad, and we've got the third pillar of 80s and 90s childhood media, which is old ladies / dog catchers versus the nicest and most resourceful dog in the whole wide world.
I know.
That happens over and over.
I do.
This dog looks just like Sandy from the Disney Annie, which I'm sure it's not because the timing would be wrong.
Probably not, yeah. But I do agree that he shouldn't have his dog at the bank. I think that was a bad move.
But it's his sidekick. We don't have Gizmo yet.
Yeah.
We need a dog.
Yeah, but...
A boy and his dog against
not at
the world,
bank,
you know?
like...
Well, you never know when a Mrs. Deagle might come in acting all crazy.
Yeah, well...
Get her, Barney. Ruff, ruff.
Woof, woof. I love how Gizmo calls him woof, woof. It's my favorite thing. But this is the scene here that establishes Mrs. Deagle's storyline. We learn that she has no problem evicting her tenants for whatever reason she deems necessary for the greater good. And by the greater good, I mean her own privilege.
Because to folks like that, those things are one and the same.
Right. They can't see the
no
difference.
empathy at all.
None. I mentioned the family of 4. There's also Dory's Tavern, which she wants to close down because she thinks it's a public nuisance. I bet she has some strong opinions about alcohol and drinking and being drunk.
I'm sure.
So having this Henry Potter-like character, Mrs. Deagle, establishes the common enemy of the community. The locals hate her, and now we do too. And luckily for us, the Gremlins eventually choose to impose their mischief onto her, giving us all a shared moment of celebration in which we can root for these little monsters. But we'll get to that later.
Very important.
And when we first meet Billy's crush and the love of all of our lives, Kate, she asks him to sign a petition to save Dory's Tavern.
That's when my dad proposed to my mom, you know.
That's where everybody's dad proposed to their mom. Cross your teeth.
We gotta save Dory's Tavern.
Save the clock tower.
Save the clock tower.
Just saying.
Man, there's always something like that in these movies. Spielberg.
Unite the town.
Spielberg. I'll follow in your footsteps one of these days. And after work, Billy goes to Dory's Tavern, presumably to take the edge off. I don't know how old he is. While standing in solidarity against Mrs. Deagle, who, again, threatened to kill his dog. And here we learn that Kate is even more of a saint than we previously knew.
Of course she
because
is.
she's working late shifts pro bono to help Dory make rent by not having to hire another waitress.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, Kate, but...
She is putting her money where her mouth is, or the lack thereof.
This is really not a very economical way to do things, but...
No.
Geez, what a pure-hearted character.
I know. I mean, as somebody who spent most of my high school years working volunteer jobs. Like I would work for very little, if anything.
Yeah.
Because I had a roof over my head. I had the things that I needed. And I did a lot of hours of pro bono work at different places just because I could at the time. And now thinking of doing that, it's like...
Yeah, it's like having like a day job already, you know?
It's so much harder when you have a mortgage.
Well, Billy sits at the bar, sketching a caricature of Mrs. Deagle as a dragon being slain by a knight in shining armor. Some very strong manifestation, some wishful thinking.
The old bath never looked better. It's great. You're doing fine.
Thanks.
And I have to point out here that the man who compliments Billy's sketch work is none other than Chuck Jones.
Oh, yeah.
And Billy even calls him Mr. Jones, but I think it would have been a lot cooler if he'd called him Dr. Jones. But maybe that's just me.
Missed opportunity.
And arriving home later, Billy finds his mother Lynn absent-mindedly watching a movie on the kitchen TV while half-heartedly preparing dinner.
It's a Wonderful Life.
That's right, of course. But Lynn is most likely wondering to herself, what's so wonderful about life anyway? And at Billy's insistence, Lynn reveals that she's upset because she received another call from Mrs. Deagle earlier that day, although we never get to find out what that conversation was because their genuine moment of truth together is interrupted by the arrival home of the absent man of the house, Rand Peltzer, singing Christmas carols and bearing a gift for Billy that won't wait until Christmas.
For once, not absent.
Good thing dinner's going to be on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing the bills are paid.
Sounds a lot like Chet from Boy Meets World, Sean's dad.
Oh, right.
Blowing in and out like a tumbleweed.
And here's where we officially meet the Mogwai, which Rand has since named Gizmo.
Great name. I meant to send it to you. One of our local animal shelters had a bonded pair of cats that they were trying to rehome recently, named Gizmo and Stripe.
Oh my God, it's perfect. I need them.
They were adorable. They were hugging all up on each other in every picture. I was like, that's what a bonded pair of cats looks like. I love that. I've never had one of those. My cats just tolerate each other. Or Buzz more than tolerates Phoebe and Penny back in the day. He loved them.
Yeah.
They don't love him back.
Yeah, that's Atlas. He loves Sphinx, but Sphinx is over it.
Hard to get.
He's over it. Well, Gizmo is small. He's furry. He's got big ears and eyes. And boy, does he hate bright light.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed watching it this time that they really play up the bright lights thing early a lot.
Because they want us to know you're never going to get a good look at these guys.
Never really.
Don't expect it. Temper your expectations.
Right. Go ahead and do that.
Moviegoers, because we got to hide some stuff.
I also think because it doesn't have much bearing on the rest of the film, they go ahead and use this rule that, we know they made up sort of on the fly to further endear us to Gizmo, right? Because he falls over, his eyes spin around, it makes him extra cute.
Poor guy. Just want to help him. Scoop him up.
It shows us.
Fix it.
It shows us that he really is just a small little guy who is, silly and cute and means no harm to anyone. Not to mention how freaking adorable he is in his bandages when he gets a little Bobo on his head.
Bobo on his head.
Bobo. Well, guys, it's that time of year again. Everyone's online shopping, drinking hot drinks, and looking forward to the next gathering with friends and family. But if you're anything like me, you've been too busy out night hunting for that wily Tailipo to even think about the holidays. He's not gonna get me, no, sir. Not this year. But this comes at a cost, and I don't mean your life or your dog's lives. I'm talking about that mountain man beard and all that scraggly body hair you've neglected in the name of survival. But never fear. Thanks to Manscaped's Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, it's never been more easy to remove all the hairs from your Tailipo. This package is the all-in-one grooming kit featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra to get your chestnuts ready for roasting, of course, and the Weed Whacker 2.0 for trimming those pesky nose and ear hairs to help you always deck your halls in style. Not to mention everything else you need to preserve your most precious of ornaments. The Crop Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion and the Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant to polish up those jingle bells and keep you dashing through the snow. This Performance Package 5.0 Ultra comes with 2 holiday bonuses. That's the Boxers 2.0 in Midnight Bravo and the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag. So you're never unprepared for that figgy pudding. So forget the Talipo for now and join over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped for all their holiday needs. Use the code PRETTYDARK for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code PRETTYDARK at manscaped.com. Trust me, the Talipo will still be there when you get back because it's always there. Always. Next day, as the Peltzer peeler juicer douses Billy in orange juice, Pete, in his tree costume, comes by to drop off the Peltzer's Christmas tree. And here's where things take their first interesting turn. While hanging out with Gizmo upstairs, Pete knocks over a jar of water that spills on Gizmo's back. He writhes in agony on the desk, and from his rippling flesh and fur pops 5 new fuzzy mogwai, one of which has a mohawk, a stripe of white hair.
Hate it so much.
This doesn't bother me as much as the cocoons do.
Oh, those are bad.
Those are
well.
way worse. So much worse.
I cannot. Darklings, if you share in my trypophobia, I am here for you.
I thought that was just
Grotesque.
The holes, the numerous holes.
No,
it can be
it's
any
not just that.
Balls of things.
Any cluster of anything. The word cluster even is very troubling to me.
I think it's a good word.
I disagree.
What, clusterfuzzle. How's clusterfuzzle? That's what
it's
he is.
Better than cluster.
When a mogwai gets wet, it's a clusterfuzzle.
Ah!
Of rippling flesh.
I was okay with that one until you drew this association. Now I'll never be able to say it again, so thanks.
You know, it's funny. The new ones aren't like Gizmo. The one with the stripes seems to be the leader.
You know what?
What?
I'll bet every kid in America would like to have one of these.
They're all rambunctious and rowdy, but Gizmo is off to the side hanging out with Barney, fully contented to blow on a toy trumpet, while the others want to hawk loogies and roughhouse and play video games.
There's always one of each.
And while none of those things are objectively bad, the first prank they pull is, and that is using Christmas lights to string up our poor buddy Barney out in the cold.
Not cool.
Was this the moment where they were actually supposed to kill Barney, like eat him, but instead
most likely
they
changed it up. They dimmed it down a little bit.
Yeah, got to.
The only thing I wrote about this scene was the poor puppy with 7 exclamations. So
the poor puppy.
If you know how I feel about that.
And why nobody thinks to blame the 5 new mogwais beyond me? You know, isn't that the simplest solution? Like the simplest explanation? Then
you would think
he got out the window and tripped up in the lights and hung himself.
Whoops.
Outside. I mean,
feels intentional.
Could also be because Rand is scheming.
This could really be the big one.
Naturally, Rand dreams of selling a mogwai to every kid in America. This he would call the Peltzer pet. Completely
dismissing everything he was told.
Right.
You know?
Completely.
Because that's what we do.
Out of sight, out of mind.
White American people. How can I capitalize on this at detriment to everyone but me in my pocket?
Exactly. This thought process is why the old shopkeeper was justified in his judgments, that they weren't ready for so much responsibility. You know, at any point, they could have gone back and asked him for help instead of scheming to capitalize on such a discovery.
And they didn't want to go back to the shopkeeper because if they tip him off to like what he has, he'll make the money, not them, in their mind. You know?
I guess so.
Of course, he never would because he recognizes the sanctity of life in all its forms. But
that's the thing. He wouldn't sell one of them
for $200 that he desperately needed.
But Rand Peltzer wants to sell millions of them.
Exactly. That is the dichotomy.
But you know why they don't go back and seek out answers? It's because they're holding fast to the comforts of willful ignorance and the hope that they will get rich quick.
Yeah. If you don't type it into the search bar, it's not real.
Billy's a little bit different from his dad. You know, for his own part, he does make a meager attempt at educating himself by taking one of the mogwai to show his old high school science teacher, Mr. Hansen, who keeps it overnight to run some tests. Now, I don't know what kind of tests are available to your average high school science lab, but it seems to me like this man should be thinking about, you know, contacting a taxonomist to see if this thing already exists.
Although, if you are up on the new Dexter Original Sin, you'll notice that school teachers and science labs have more resources available than you might think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not up to date, but...
God. I'm into Dexter, and I was really impressed with the New Blood spinoff, and now they've just started the Original Sin, which is the prequel spinoff.
Right.
And it's the same kind of thing where what do you do when you don't know what to do? You contact your science teacher.
That seems to be the case.
Believe scientists.
Right.
Hey, and teachers while we're at it.
Yeah.
Listen to them.
This scenario has been reproduced in many things. Like Stranger Things did it.
Yeah.
Goosebumps did it. It just became a trope in its own way.
If anybody's going to know, it might just be a science teacher.
Thank
a science teacher today. Although he does have just like a literal brain out on the table. So
yeah, I noticed that.
Tread lightly, tread with caution.
I noticed it when he was in the classroom the next day. It's just, a little plastic brain. But I was like, what the hell? What is it's just sitting there?
The 80s were for uncovered food in the fridge, which we also see, and uncovered brains in the science lab.
And I'm all about this guy, studying this little creature and trying to figure it out. But he proceeds to take a substantial blood sample from it by sticking this like massive needle down its arm, like all the way in.
I've had a couple of those.
It really bothered me
types.
a lot.
Yeah.
He's just so small, and I feel like that would be like sticking a knife through your forearm and being like, cool, I got some blood.
Pretty much.
I don't know. It's not trypophobia, but I don't know what that is.
Probably more common, actually, a fear of needles, which I don't have, shockingly.
Yeah, I don't either.
And it's a damn good thing, because they sure do like to stick me.
Yeah. And you got to get more tattoos.
Hey, I'm trying all the time.
But we're going to come back to Mr. Hansen and his science lab gremlin very soon. But later that night, Billy walks by Dory's tavern, no doubt hoping to walk Kate home from her shift. It's late, and Kate is busy trying to manage the last customer of the night, a drunk Murray Futterman, who is the one character who provides all the context we need to understand where the concept of Gremlins came from and help bridge our gap between one inspirational film to the next. We first meet Mr. Futterman earlier in the film when Billy is struggling to start his frozen car, which is a red Volkswagen Beetle. Mr. Futterman arrives home on his snowplow, and seeing Billy having some car trouble, comes over to offer him a hand and give us our first taste of the xenophobic American nationalism that lies behind much of the lore of this film's narrative. Billy's car is absolutely covered in ice and won't start because it's frozen. But Mr. Futterman says that's because it's a foreign car.
Goddamn foreign cars, they always freeze up on you. You don't find American machinery doing that. Our stuff can take anything. See that plow? 15 years old. Hasn't given me a day's trouble in 15 years. You know why? Kentucky Harvester. It ain't some foreign piece of crap you pick up these days. That's a Kentucky Harvester.
And the only thing that makes this context somewhat palatable today is that Mr. Futterman, it would seem, is also the town drunk. Adding a layer of hilarity and implausibility.
And it makes it somewhat progressive that they made this guy,
sort of a
the
kook.
town drunk. Coupling those two tropes together is a statement in and of itself.
It really is.
You only think this way if you're ignorant and by choice, often.
Yeah, he also references comics that no longer run in the papers, which would also suggest that he's mentally stuck in the past, meaning his views and opinions are outdated, to say the least. So yeah, you're right.
They give us a lot of little gems to cling on to in terms of this is who we're kind of making fun of.
Right.
He epitomizes the Western citizen that this film almost looks to punish.
Yeah, in a way.
One of many that this film looks to punish.
He's sort of he's a coin, Mr. Futterman. That's one side of it. And on the other, he also further embodies the hardship that's befallen the good people of Kingston Falls, because we're told he's only been a helpless sort of needy drunk, since he lost his job at the factory, which was apparently shut down thanks to Mrs. Deagle. So it's almost like, yeah, he is this way and we can't take him seriously because he's a bit crazy. But it's also like, he might not be so crazy and things might be better for him if he hadn't lost his job. It's just sort of this whole wrapped up in this whole...
It's the same thing we were saying earlier about Gerald and and he's, holding on to these heirloom beliefs and biases that don't help him. This comes up all the time on That's Pretty Dark.
Yeah.
We recognize that people in these places are often there due to the circumstances.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to look at the big picture and the churning, wheel of time and history that brought us where we are, the generations prior and the struggles that led us here. But I appreciate that there's also this like underlying message of just because your circumstances put you in a position to be shitty doesn't mean it's okay to be shitty.
Right. It doesn't excuse anything. It's almost like such desperate times, make people so desperate that they end up clinging to their values harder than they would have before.
Right.
And even if it's not a good value, a positive value, it's something that they believe sustains them.
And you're describing pretty much the entire boomer generation.
Right. Yeah. They have to hold on to what makes them feel secure and safe. And if that's hatred, if by hating the other, hating certain types of people or whatever, makes you feel better about your standing in society and how you've lived your life because you're right and they're wrong, then that's what you're going to continue doing because it makes you feel good about yourself.
And that takes us full circle to a lot of times these people get ahead and do better and are better off in life because they aren't worried about the other. They are thinking about themselves and what makes them feel better and never taking that extra step to look beyond their nose and see how that behavior makes other people feel. So it's a vicious cycle in a lot of ways.
Truly is.
And it's fun to me that this narrative comes from a silly, campy 80s horror Christmas movie.
I know. It cuts deep. It's there's a lot of good stuff to it. But this wacky, proud and paranoid xenophobic thread weaves itself through Mr. Futterman's entire existence as a character on screen.
Futterman, guess what? It's time to go home now.
Hey, how about one more beer?
No, it's getting late.
And one more beer, I'll help you clean up this mess.
No, thanks, though. It'll be okay.
Totally hammered at Dory's that night with Kate and Billy, Mr. Futterman starts complaining about how things have changed.
Back in good old days.
When I had a job and I wasn't a drunk and I wasn't crazy. The bank has closed down the factory and the foreigners have now ruined his snowplow.
Instead of, here we are, he's blaming the foreigners, blaming the other, instead of looking up the food chain to the Mrs. Deagles, who are the actual cause of his suffering.
Yep.
This here is the crux of it.
It's too big of a concept. It's too big for his brain to handle.
This right here illustrates the class war.
You're right.
Point your anger in the right direction and let it be your arrow. By golly, let it be. But point it in the correct direction.
It's a good word.
Please,
it's a good word.
Everyone.
Yeah, don't blame the other hardworking people of the world. Blame those that don't want to work hard but want to make you work hard. And then take your job from you and just say, oh, that's your fault.
And leave you destitute.
Driving a snowplow for a car.
It's kind of like a healthcare CEO.
Hey.
Kind of like that.
Hey. Very relevant. Very timely. The thing is, Mr. Futterman recently took in his snowplow for a tune-up. And what do you know? It's got some new parts. All foreign made.
You got to watch out for the foreigners because they plant gremlins in their machinery. That's the same gremlins brought down our planes in the big one.
Big one.
That's right. World War II. Good old WWII. They're still shipping them over here. They put them in the cars, they put them in the TV, they put them in the stereos and the radios you stick in your ears, they put them in your watches. They got little teeny gremlins for our watches.
I don't think it's such a good idea that you drive.
All this reminds me of the time I had some plumbing work done.
Oh, God.
And one of the new water lines ended up coming loose in my guest bathroom and flooded the guest bathroom at 1 a.m. mid-January, 20-something degrees outside.
I do recall you talking about this.
Yeah, it was terrible. I was freezing cold. When I called the plumber back out to fix it, he didn't blame his handiwork. You know what he blamed?
I hope to God it was a gremlin.
No, he blamed, quoting, "goddamn Vietnamese bullshit." Because the parts that he used were all made in Vietnam.
That's what I hoped it wasn't.
So it's the fault of the Vietnamese, not
him.
Not
that
your
installed
careless mistakes. Yeah.
That's what we unpacked really in part one. We went very deep into that paranoia
Yep.
The deep, deep-seated paranoia and the need to blame the other.
Yep.
Just blame the right other.
The Fremlin.
Blame the Fremlin, not the gremlin.
Well, doing her part to keep Mr. Futterman alive, she convinces him to walk home instead of driving, after which Billy and Kate walk home together. And here we are introduced to one of the biggest themes and most important lessons that this film has to offer. Not everybody celebrates Christmas, and not everybody is happy around the holidays.
Here we are.
These are very important things that everybody needs to understand, including Billy, who is bewildered by this revelation.
That's funny, because I always thought everyone was happy during the holidays. No matter what.
Well, most people are, but some aren't. While everybody else is opening up their presents, they're opening up their wrists.
Cheery thought.
It's true. The suicide rate's always the highest around the holidays.
That's pretty dark, y'all, for
That's
a PG movie where a bunch of kids are sitting there.
It's even dark for a PG-13 movie.
Kinda.
Opening up their wrists, just the imagery of that.
She's not
too much.
wrong. It's just, it's a bit heavy-handed.
Heavy-handed, yeah.
Heavy-wristed.
I knew you were going to do that, and I didn't want you
Light-wristed,
to.
actually, because there's less blood.
Lighter, yeah.
Light-wristed. Heavy-bladed.
Mm-hmm.
And, we know about this. Historically, I think the holidays have made us both very sad.
Mm-hmm.
We made an entire sad Christmas movie about it a few years ago.
We sure did.
With this exact same theme.
With this theme that not everything is jolly, holiday.
Sometimes bad things happen around Christmas time. It's just so strange to me that like Christmas is the most wonderful time of the year, and there's all these wonderful Christmas songs and everything, but then there's like almost every Christmas movie that is really worth anything is about how hard life is and how much it sucks, and how people have to fight just to enjoy and survive. And there's always this death swirling around, and poverty and hunger and sickness and disease.
That's how all of life feels to me. So maybe I'm a little bit twisted, but I've always felt the weight of the world in ways that a child should never have probably done.
Same.
And that has carried through into my adulthood full force. I'm always thinking about how much worse it could be for me. I'm always thinking about how much worse it could be for others. I'm always thinking about how much better I have it than others and how unfortunate that is. I can't escape that constant comparison, and it's obviously only gotten worse with the internet and the way that we have access to the entire world in our hands all the time. I've always felt deeply connected to the suffering that's happening everywhere. I think something that we do like to highlight on a show like That's Pretty Dark, where we are all about the darkness all the time, is how important the light moments are.
Yeah.
Like how important it is to find that magic. I was just talking with a friend earlier about how we were talking about like different differences in Christmas traditions when you're an adult versus when we were kids.
Yeah,
and thinking about the fact that the majority of my Christmas memories, it's always the mom or the caregiver that's making the magic, that's making it happen. It's the adult that's in charge of your experience. If you did find magic at the holidays or really any time of year, it was all of the unseen work of those grown-ups that made it feel like magic.
Yeah.
And any of us that were lucky enough to have those experiences, that's what we carry was all this labor that we never knew about. And now we're the grown-ups doing the labor, which can be, there can be joy in that. But
there can be.
There's that element of it. And also a lot of the family that I love spending time with at the holidays is gone now. They've passed away, all of my dad's family.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part of Christmas, was like being with my dad's parents and, my uncle, and none of them are here with us anymore. So it's like the older that you get, the more loss that the more loss that you experience. And that also makes it harder to find the joy and the magic. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I would say it's a more common experience to be sad or have. And then we've talked about this in relation to our birthdays, because you and I both get sad on our birthday.
Yeah.
There's this weird echoey expectation because of all of the hype and all of the media and all of the everything about how great you're supposed to feel at this time or this holiday or this experience is supposed to be so great and so wonderful and so meaningful. And then if it isn't those things, even if you didn't plan for it to be, even if you didn't have expectations, conscious expectations that it would be, you still have that gap of where the reality landed, even if the reality is pretty damn good. The where the reality landed and where the expectations were.
Yeah.
So there's that gap too. Half of the happiness in anything for me is the anticipation of the good thing. Because once the good thing is over, I'm upset about how it's over.
Right.
Nostalgic for
I like
it,
the build up much better.
Mm-hmm.
I like everything from September 1st to October, 30th more than actually the day of Halloween.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
because it's like, wait, now I just
'Cause
have
now
to
it's
capitalize on the whole day, like make it, do as much as I can.
And you feel that pressure to cram it all in
and
there.
it's never as satisfying as you want it to be. So,
How
yeah.
many innuendos are the Darklings making as they're talking back to us right now?
Look, guys, it's just it's so much more about the journey than the destination. You just need to just focus on where you're at right now and enjoy where you are. And that's where you find true contentment. And it's so great.
It's not easy to do, to be present in that.
But everything you just said about how it's the adults in our lives that made the magic happen and made the magic possible, made it what it was for us as kids. Keep that in mind when we talk about Kate's story and how all that was shattered for her when she was still in that childlike state.
You guys clicked it. It said, "That's pretty dark" in big letters. And
you knew what you were
it
doing. You signed up
holidays.
for this. Kate doesn't celebrate Christmas. And later, while Kingston Falls is living out its own Orson Welles' War of the Worlds scenario, Kate finally explains why she hates the holiday so much. And I'd say it's for a very good reason. Yeah. One Christmas Eve, years ago, when Kate was still a little girl, her father didn't come home from work. They reported him missing, but there was no trace of him until they began to notice the smell coming from the chimney. The police found her father in the chimney with a broken neck, dressed as Santa with an armful of presents.
The bent neck Santa.
And that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus.
It's just so much, it's so
much,
so heavy. And I love that was the
cherry on top.
Yeah. It wasn't that her dad died. It was like, that's how
Santa.
I found out. Yeah.
Which is a very good summary of this was the death of innocence.
Yeah.
Here, you lose someone that's so important to you, and you lose the childhood magic all in one
fell swoop.
Chimney sweep.
One chimney swoop.
I tried.
Good for her, not letting this just totally wreck her worldview and make her a super jaded, hardened, individual. She uses this hurt for good. Yeah.
Yes. It inspired her in the opposite direction.
She knows true pain. She knows true loss and suffering. So she doesn't want anyone else to feel that way.
And that's kind of how I look at myself.
Oh, wow.
I haven't known loss like Kate's, but all of the bad things that have happened to me make me so desperate to keep other people from experiencing them. So desperate. And I don't understand how you can go through something and not think that way. But as we have talked about at length today,
it's very rare that people
have different responses to trauma.
I'll get you I'm not going to get you a back scratcher for Christmas. I'm going to get you a back patter.
Yeah.
So you can just pat yourself on the back.
Thanks. I'm just saying that my hardships make me so motivated to prevent hardship for others.
I think a lot more people are feeling that way just because the previous generations have seen it as the opposite.
Yeah. This isn't a me thing. This isn't a yay, way to go, Kaylin. I think this is a millennial turning of the tides thing.
I think so.
I don't think it's individual at all.
Yeah. It's just a lot of people for a very long time have lived that way of, I suffered, I had it hard, so you should too. It made me who I am.
Decided not to do that.
And it's like, but do you really want to be who you are?
No, right. Millennials started to ask, but who could you be had it not been
so
for that?
Proud of being the terrible person that you are.
Right.
Well, this story of the dead Santa in the chimney, this is one of the most current urban legends to exist in our time, if not the most
Tell us
current.
all about it. I've been waiting for this since part 1.
This is because, as one /film article claims, this story of a father dressed as Santa Claus dying in a chimney was not inspired by an actual urban legend.
Good.
As it were,
Good.
Chris Columbus told Yahoo that Kate's backstory was inspired by a cartoon drawn by artist Gran Wilson that was printed in a 1964 issue of Playboy.
The cartoon depicts a chimney worker informing a shocked middle-aged couple. Well, we found out what's been clogging your chimney since last December, Miss Emmy. Santa Claus lies on the bottom, his belly no longer a bowl full of jelly, but brittle bones, causing his red suit to melt into the ground. His skeletal face is slack-jawed and has hollow, black eye sockets. It's an incredibly eerie image. Wilson had told the Washington Post he received more angry mail than anything he ever did. You can mess around with religion, but when you kill off Santa Claus, there's an uproar. You never know.
And something about this really stuck with Chris Columbus, who went on to explain to Yahoo further.
I'm fascinated by how Christmas is the time of year when people are at their most emotional and happiest, yet there's a whole other side of the population that's incredibly depressed, potentially out of work. So you take that and you set it against the backdrop of back in the day, something like Gremlins. And that's an interesting stew to me. When people should be celebrating with their families, these ridiculously evil monsters are terrorizing the town and killing everyone. That is fascinating.
That's fascinating. I get it, though. I mean, I get it.
Yeah, no, there's something to it. If you're in your house all cozied up with a fire in the fireplace and you're exchanging gifts with your loved ones, sipping hot cocoa, and then you look out the window and there's like a maniac monster of the likes of which you've never seen rampaging across the town square.
Red eyes, sharp teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that thought. That's so fun. That's so fun to me.
Just hope to God it never happens.
I hope not. So, in a lot of ways, this is why Kate's character exists. She doesn't just give this film its romantic edge. She gives it all the emotional complexity that makes it the dark Norman Rockwell classic that we still obsess over today.
She is woman.
Listen to her.
Bringing all that emotional depth.
Roar.
She's not just a sex symbol.
And that's why I call it a current urban legend, because Chris Columbus practically invented it. Thanks to Gremlins, generations of kids can now tell their friends and siblings and cousins about the tragic story of how some kid they know from another town or neighborhood or school found out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Snopes.com has debunked this story as true, claiming no instance of a real Santa-garbed fathers perishing in a chimney has yet surfaced.
Okay.
Although there have been a number of accounts where people have been found dead in chimneys.
Just not Santas.
See the article I found called A Brief History of People Getting Stuck in Chimneys and Dying by Mike Pearl.
These articles just...
the titles are just
boop, right on the nose.
Published on December 23rd, 2015.
So because people were looking it up at Christmas time, that's why.
The variations of this particular motif, according to Snopes, are as follows. The dead man's absence from the house is not noticed by the family because he is ostensibly away on a business trip. He's able to return to the house because his trip is canceled. He cancels the trip himself, or the trip was nothing but a ruse. In different versions, the man dies from asphyxiation, a broken neck, exposure, or smoke inhalation. And the dead man is discovered when the family lights a fire and the smoke backs up into the house, or when they notice the smell of charred flesh.
The stuck Santa story is perhaps the most archetypal of the many urban legends involving a juxtaposition of enjoyment and tragedy. What could be more horrifying for children at Christmas time? The season of peace on earth and goodwill toward men, joyful family gatherings, and oodles of eagerly anticipated presents, than the catastrophic discovery that both Dad, literally, and Santa Claus, figuratively, have died in a ghastly accident.
That's pretty much what you were saying before.
Yeah.
And you were like, and also Santa Claus died too.
The death of a Santa.
So
I've been singing all day.
Thanks to the sheer brilliance that is Gremlins, even Snopes.com thinks that this has always been a real urban legend.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey Darklings, Kaylin here. We know our generation has a surplus of pretty darkness in common, and if there's one thing unpacking our upbringing has taught us, it's just how essential therapy is for shining a flashlight on the darkness in our own lives. I don't know where I'd be without mine. I believe every human can benefit from the perspective of a licensed therapist. Whether you're familiar with your own inner workings or you're just looking for a listening ear, you can give BetterHelp online therapy a try by going to betterhelp.com/prettydark and receive 10% off your first month. I get that online therapy can be tricky, but I've been seeing my therapist online since 2020, and I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely worth it. Getting started is always the hardest part, and BetterHelp makes that easy. You can begin right from your phone or computer in whatever way makes you most comfortable, via good old-fashioned phone calls, video chats, or even messaging, if that's more your style. We enjoy this frightful nostalgia and learning about how it all connects, but Darklings know we're also passionate about healing and growing from what we learn. If you dare to do the same, head to betterhelp.com/prettydark. There you can answer a few questions and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people like us. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time, so you're sure to find the right connection. Millennials are ditching the stigma and owning our mental health. And with BetterHelp, you can build a relationship with a professional all from the comfort of your own home, just how we like it. Visit betterhelp.com/prettydark or choose That's Pretty Dark podcast during sign up and enjoy 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/prettydark.
And just like that, nearly 40 minutes into this movie, the film shifts from a feel-good Christmas sitcom to a full-blown horror comedy. Kingston Falls begins its slow metamorphosis from Bedford Falls of It's a Wonderful Life to Santa Mira of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And in case we need a heads up of what's to come, that's the very same movie that Billy has playing in the background of his bedroom while he's drawing on the bed and Gizmo is reading the newspaper with 3D glasses.
They're like huge seed pods. This must be the way that potty in my closet was formed.
Did y'all catch it? The channels on the TV changed like the channels of the narrative of the film changed.
Yeah, did you guys notice that?
Did you see? Moviegoers?
Did you guys notice that? There's a few more things you could have noticed if you were paying very close attention. The other Mogwai are all acting a fool, presumably hungry. And what Billy doesn't know is that Stripe has chewed through the wires on his alarm clock, effectively stopping time at 11:35 p.m.
A common gremlin pastime.
Mm-hmm. So Billy feeds them some chicken that made me so hungry, despite the gross-up close-up of them slobbering all over it.
I don't need that.
And like I said, for the discerning eye of any hypervigilant audience member, when we cut back to the school science lab with Mr. Hansen, we can clearly see from the clock on the wall that the time is actually 2:20 a.m. Well after midnight, my friends.
That's it, good buddy. Call it a night.
Oh, Mr. Hansen, like a total noob, like it's his first time with the Mogwai, leaves the rest of his sandwich close enough for his captive Mogwai to reach. Ross Geller would be horrified. But for different reasons.
It's his
sandwich! And just as Mr. Hansen leaves the room to go home because it's late 30, what does that Mogwai do?
Takes a bite.
Yeah, he eats that sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Yum, yum. And the next thing Billy knows upon waking, the Mogwai have all formed into what can only be described as these absolutely fucking disgusting gooey cocoons.
Thank you. Jesus.
In other words, seed pods. Just like the seed pods from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Seed pods again?
That's from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I can't help
icky.
it. They're seed pods.
Icky, and I don't like it.
Seed pods.
Grody.
Yum, yum.
I mean, they're fine if it's like actual seeds and, you know, it's like plant situation. But if we're talking about like a creature, no thank you. Trypophobia.
Mr. Hansen explains to Billy and Pete that this is a pupal stage.
Pupal stage.
A metamorphosis. A complete change in form and appearance.
Whatever it says, whatever they're going through.
Once they begin hatching out of their cocoons just a few hours later, the scaly, slimy membranes break loose, emitting drifting clouds of smoke and the slightest hint of a pulsating green light.
I'm gonna throw up.
So is poor Gizmo hiding in a helmet.
Yeah.
Just like sitting there horrified watching them. I have a fun Christmas movie mental correlation in my brain. Who else, when they watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, who else sees in their mind the gremlin seed pods when Clark Griswold cuts into the turkey and it just like implodes and it busts open and the smoke comes out and the bones are exposed? It just looks like a gremlin seed pod.
Yeah.
That has just burst
It
open.
made me very unhappy.
Now imagine, when they all begin to eat that turkey, imagine they're eating chunks of the gremlin seed pod. And
you've just ruined Christmas for so many people.
Yep. It's a job well done.
He's stretching.
I think we can just sign off.
Yeah.
I think we just sign off. It's done. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah.
We can't make it any worse. That's for sure.
I think it can get worse.
I love how we're just like, take Santa dying in the chimney in stride, and then we're like, ew, seed pods.
Seed pods, gross.
Yeah, that's kind of my my horror aesthetic in a nutshell. Or a seed pod. Anyway.
This is the content you all came for. I'm glad we can finally give it to
you. For Christmas.
So will the Gremlins. This scene with Mr. Hansen and the gremlin in the science lab is a personal favorite of mine. You know, the lights are off, projector reel is going, talking about
what
hearts, heartbeats. What?
It's the kitchen scene from Jurassic
Park. I wrote that down too.
He was always working toward that kitchen scene.
Always.
You can find traces of it in everything Spielberg did before he finally reached his climax with that kitchen scene.
Just edging all the way up.
All the way
to
there.
That climax.
Jingle bells all the way.
Cue our Manscaped ad.
Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
You said it, I didn't. That's all you. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much drawn-out suspense here and anticipation of what the Mogwai looks like now and what it's capable of.
Yeah.
And it hides under the desk. And when Mr. Hansen offers it a chocolate bar...
A Wonka.
It grabs hold of him and sticks him with a tranquilizer, knocking him out.
Mm-hmm.
And when Billy shows up moments later, the creature scratches his hand with its scaly green claw, giving us the first hint of the Mogwai's new form, just before it escapes through the AC vent.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
And if only Disney had acquired this and made this the alien encounter attraction, a gremlin encounter would have been so cool.
God, I still have nightmares about the little atrium.
Me too.
But because I had to crawl around on the floor as a cast member, that's what I have nightmares about. Not so much the attraction.
I see. For me, it was the smell. Like it was
the smell
just
is bad.
Too much. It hurt. It always gave me a headache.
Me too.
But
same.
Gremlin encounter. They really messed this up.
Universal could have done it.
Ooh, they love to copy Disney stuff. They should have just done a gremlin encounter.
They have a whole park at their disposal.
That would have been so cool. And this gremlin makes its way to a cabinet in the nurse's station, of course, where Billy goes to dress his wound. And its full form is officially revealed in a jump scare as the Mogwai, now a gremlin, bursts out of the closed cabinet door.
Give him back his taily bow.
He does come back. I love that they held off, edging, literally.
Edging.
And then getting to that moment where you think it's gone and Billy's going to just dress his wound. Boom! Bam. There it is. It bursts out. So good. So good. I love their practical effect, the gimmick of panning past the door to Billy, panning back. There's a massive hole in the door. That's some good filmmaking right there.
Epitome of horror cinema.
They knew not to show the monster too much.
Just enough.
Meanwhile, Billy's mom, Lynn, is home alone with all the other hatched gremlins who are now using Gizmo for dart practice before tossing him down the laundry chute.
Much to the excitement of the crew.
You know what I miss about houses? You know, there are no more dumbwaiters and there are no more laundry chutes. I think we need to bring back at least the laundry chute.
Yeah. How else are we going to get haunted if we don't bring those back?
If we don't have those compartments in the walls of our homes where things can hide out for years and years and decades, how are we ever going to really fully, thoroughly experience any ghostly activity, you know?
It's a dying art.
That's a good point. And I love this moment here with Lynn in the kitchen as the scene goes from wholesomely decorating gingerbread men to grabbing a kitchen knife and preparing to kill something.
Yep. It's another case of that juxtaposition.
It's so good.
Although the gingerbread cookies were very poorly iced, I must say. I'm not saying I could do a better job. I'm just saying.
She's distracted. She's depressed.
Yeah.
She's not enjoying her holidays so far, I don't think.
No.
She's trying.
Yeah. And I mean, she's got a will to live. Grabbing that knife, she knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Most sense of pretty much anybody we've seen so far.
To that point, it's a refreshing moment. There are none of the typical horror film cliches here, you know, which this is the moment where there would be. This unsuspecting woman home alone. You know, there's no calling out who's there or going upstairs unarmed because she thinks it's a prank. This is before all that. This is better than that. This rises above those tropes, those gimmicks. She just slips right into action mom badass mode immediately, ready to kick some ass.
Final girl. She is a final girl.
She is first girl with final girl mentality.
Yeah.
Ooh. What a badass.
Subverting expectations again.
And this is another good distinction that Alex Gurzo made in his Geeks and Gamers article. He emphasized how the citizens of Kingston Falls wind up using everyday objects to defend themselves against the gremlins.
Because what else would we do? What would you grab right now? Okay, stop.
It's very
pause.
realistic.
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
imagine a gremlin pops through that window that's to your right.
Yeah.
What do you defend yourself with?
I'd be very sad, but I would use my bottle of whiskey I've got right here, my bourbon. I'd grab the bottle of bourbon, and I'd back myself into a corner and grab one of the chairs. I'd flip the table I have over there with my puzzle on it. Puzzle pieces everywhere. It'd be a madhouse in here.
See, yeah, you have more ready access to weapons right now. I have a pen
they're not
in my
weapons.
hand.
They're household
but they
objects.
become weapons when you need them to.
Right.
I have this ink pen, so
hey, look,
I'm probably screwed. I also have
no. I hear the pen is mightier than swords.
You have a point, as does this pen.
I hear that pens are better than swords in a battle.
I have a roll of wrapping paper, Christmas wrapping paper. That could be fun.
Wrap up a gremlin?
Ineffective, but fun.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff we're talking about. I think this is fun.
I'm just curious.
Well, Lynn does the same thing. She looks around for what can she use. She ends up using a Peltzer mixer to kill one of them. Mm-hmm. She uses a TV tray, like a shield, against the flying dishes. And she stabs one to death with a kitchen knife. She blinds a third with cooking spray and then blows it up in the microwave. Badass.
And she was
there.
so badass that you may not have even noticed that there were two of the same exact picture on the wall of the staircase.
Really?
I think.
I didn't catch that.
That was the only moment where I was like,
that's really funny.
Hello, set
That's
deck.
really funny.
Are you there?
Alex Gerzo goes on.
With no one looking out for them, the people of Kingston Falls look out for each other as much as possible. That is what keeps them alive when the gremlins attack. Most of them, anyway. It's still a horror movie, at least partially. The gremlins are an outside force descending upon this small town, a symbol of foreign invaders, one can infer, particularly in relation to Futterman's distaste for foreign-made products and accurately predicting the emergence of the gremlins. And with no heroes, the everymen and women have to defend themselves and each other. That's why, for example, Lynn's sequence protecting her home from the gremlins is so powerful. She's been hoping and praying for George Bailey to save her, but now she's got to be her own hero, and she's taken enough knocks in life that she fights the gremlins more vigorously than anyone else would have. And Lynn uses everyday kitchen appliances against the gremlins, the tools of a housewife. This is reflected again in the finale as Stripe, the lead gremlin, attacks Billy with a power saw, and Billy uses a wooden baseball bat as protection, the little guy seizing anything at hand to repel a superior machine. Pete cuts the Christmas lights from which a gremlin hangs with a pair of scissors, saving himself with yet another lowly item.
This all just adds another layer of depth to the allegory of this film, which we'll continue to explore here in a moment. But this in itself becomes the metaphor for fighting against the superior, the authority figure, the thing that is
I really want to
prevailing
know
over
if
you.
Gremlins was on Luigi Mangione's Letterboxd account.
Hey.
Just curious.
More relevant content coming at you from
Guys, we don't mean to do this. It just happens to us. I wish we planned that well.
So many things just happen to us all the time.
Sometimes the little guy has to fight back. Has no choice. Sometimes when their way of life and existence and health is impeded upon, the health of themselves and the everymen and women of their town, sometimes the guillotines come out in unexpected ways. And who knew?
Yeah.
Revolution would start with a kitchen knife.
Lynn disposes of 3 gremlins by herself and would have taken down the other 2, I'm convinced, if they hadn't been hiding from her like the cowardly critters they are.
These gremlins, this version of them, they kind of look like the bat from The Great Mouse Detective.
Oh, yeah.
Fidget.
They are very bat-like, yeah.
They're very bat-like to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Always scared me to death as a kid. Loved Fidget. Bad guy. Loved him. Scared me to death.
Like the gremlins. Stripe hides in a box, but the other one hides in the Christmas tree. I need a Christmas tree prop like this. Something to tuck in.
Or the gremlin peeking
tuck away.
out.
Yeah. Between the limbs that looks like a gremlin with glowing red eyes.
Or a Furby.
Long Furby.
Long Furby. Just twisted around the Christmas tree.
Like a snake.
I recently saw a taxidermied biblical angel of a Furby.
Oh.
Long Furby.
Interesting.
Taxidermied to somebody's wall.
Sounds horrifying.
It is.
Be not afraid.
Be not afraid.
I am an angel of the Lord.
Me, angel.
This Christmas tree gremlin gets the best of Lynn. Not her fault. Luckily, Billy shows up and chops its head off with a sword that the Peltzers keep mounted to the wall by the door.
For such an occasion as this.
Because, she was supposed to die here, right? They were supposed to kill her.
They were going to kill her. In the original script, I believe this is where she met her end.
So, because she was supposed to die, she spends the rest of the movie at the neighbor's house instead. Same thing with Barney. He's sent on vacation to the convention with Rand because he was supposed to get eaten. And that makes me wonder, we never see Gerald Hopkins again.
No.
Was he supposed to die? Did you read anything like that?
I never read that. I never saw anything about that. But that, if we follow the pattern.
Because these are 3 characters that
maybe they decided not to kill him off because of Mystigel. And they recognized that whole, like, it was handed to him.
Oh,
he didn't originate the evil, you know? So they didn't want to kill him off for that reason, so.
Oh, and before we leave Lynn's storyline here, when Billy calls home earlier, the gremlin that cuts the phone line mid-conversation says, phone home.
Get out of the house.
Yeah, phone home. I have that written down.
This is one of a couple E.T. references.
Gotta do it.
So Stripe is the only gremlin left at this point, so he needs to make more. And Billy follows his footsteps through the snow to the local YMCA. Go. Your hand is raised, you in the front.
Thank you. I learned this from a science teacher. Snow is wet.
Hey, you're right. He should just go out and make snow angels.
Yeah. Why doesn't he utilize the snow? Because it's wet.
That's a good point.
Snow is made from wet stuff.
That's a good point. Maybe frozen water doesn't work as well as wet water.
Got it. It has to be in a liquid state.
Maybe it has to be a liquid.
That's the fine print of the rules that we never see.
It makes you wonder, you know, what if you spill like a Coke on a gremlin or a Mogwai or whatever?
Does the liquid
liquid
type
decide?
of liquid influence the type of gremlin?
Good question.
That is spawned.
These are all good points.
These are things we need to know.
Let's call up, let's get Spielberg on the horn and see.
Chris Columbus at the least.
Oh, absolutely. I think he would talk to us. He's not busy making like every movie ever.
Now I'm going to buy you a back patter, not a back scratcher, so that you can say, yeah, Chris Columbus would take my call.
He would take my call. Of course he would. But yeah, very good points. So he follows Stripe to the YMCA, where Stripe has every intention of going for a monster swim.
Monster swim.
You like that?
We see what you did there. Me and the Darklings know. We know.
I cannot tell you how proud I was of writing that down.
Of the monster swim.
Yeah.
I think 80s kids had this pool scene and 90s kids had Are You Afraid of the Dark?
The pool? And Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah, for sure. God, that's a horrifying episode. That is such a scary
People talk
episode.
about that one all the time.
But yeah, absolutely. I was just literally my next line is Stripe cannonballs into the pool. And if that smoking, churning, green, glowing swimming pool isn't quintessential 80s, I don't know what is.
Yeah, there you go. See?
There it is. See, same brainwave.
Same
link.
Brain. Vaguely.
Just say it the most awkward way you can think of, and that's
the way that it is said between us.
That's the way to be.
That's a long-running inside joke.
And that goes
not even
way
for the Darklings.
back.
That's just something we say that they've probably heard us say, and they don't know why.
Probably. Goes way back. So yeah, with this now wave pool of a swimming pool at the YMCA, Billy knows to get the f*** out of there because things are about to get very, very real.
Thought you were going to say dark.
He goes straight to the police, who do nothing but laugh at him, especially after meeting Gizmo, because they think he's too darn cute to be an evil monster. And he is.
Looks can be deceiving.
He is too darn cute to be an evil monster, though. It's true.
I do love that he loves to sing.
3D glasses. He does love to sing.
He'd be so proud of me today.
He would.
Singing. I got in Hillary Duff. I've been
you've been doing
using my pipes.
You've been doing it.
It's all in honor of Gizmo at the end of the day.
Everything we do is for Gizmo.
Everything we do.
Big ups to Gizmo. TV Tropes calls this the police are useless trope, and it's one that we encounter very often on this show.
And in life, just saying.
And in life. Not only do they not take Billy seriously, like Max Dennison from Hocus Pocus, but they're also getting hammered on spiked eggnog.
Fremlin.
Because bad things can't happen on Christmas, right?
Nope.
So
let's all get drunk.
No need to be police tonight.
Nope.
Because everybody's okay.
We don't need that. Santa will protect everyone. Oh, wait. He died years
He
ago.
died years ago in the chimney. Which, speaking of that, I meant to ask this earlier. Are they not from the same town? How does Billy not know the story?
If I was Kate's mom, I would have moved away, far away, probably.
Yeah, you can't live in that house anymore.
I wouldn't live there.
So they must have moved to Kingston
Maybe they're
Falls.
not from around here.
Maybe Kate just moved there for herself. Maybe she got out.
Maybe.
Because we never learn about her mom.
How old they are, and
we don't know what's happening there. But this sheriff is a real piece of work anyway. The first time we meet him, he's trying to get a free Christmas tree for the boys down at the station. We talk about this kind of thing all the time. If the people who are supposed to help you either can't or won't, then what are you supposed to do? You know, it's a very scary
horrifying
thought.
and haunting, and I think about it constantly.
It's one of the scariest things
in
you can think
healthcare.
of.
In my circumstances, I often am in positions where the people that are supposed to have authority over the situation simply don't.
Right.
And don't know what's happening. Maybe even end up knowing less than I do. And yeah, it's a really scary place to find yourself.
Really is. And in any case, these two useless morons at the station are contented to do nothing until a call comes in that they simply can't ignore.
Something about a snowplow. Freak accident.
It's the creature. Not a creature.
The creatures are making it look like
Billy insists that it's the Gremlins. And you know what? He's right. It's the Gremlins.
In this case, for sure.
When the Gremlins first leave the YMCA, the first place they go is the Futtermans with their goddamn foreign TV that goes on the fritz. Not because it's foreign, guys, but because the Gremlins are going haywire on the antenna. Murray goes outside to check things out when his story comes full circle. Just as he suspects, the Gremlins have indeed inhabited his Kentucky harvester, and they drive that snowplow right through their living room.
A big stunt.
A massive stunt.
Made it seem like they squished them too.
They are okay, but we are led to believe that they are squished. Yeah. Which I can't help but think of
Pretty dark.
The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, the Goosebumps story.
Any farm equipment generally doesn't belong in the house.
It doesn't belong inside.
In the home.
Yeah.
Anytime you see a big piece of farm equipment like that inside, probably a bad sign.
Things aren't going great. Yeah.
If you're cold, they're cold. So
Have you seen that guy who lets his cow in the kitchen and then he like sets up videos of trying to eat stuff?
Yeah.
Like make a sandwich with a cow.
There's a real gremlin in my cave!
The next place on the Gremlins warpath is Deagle Real Estate.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which I think, based on the sign, is only open for about 45 minutes, Monday through Friday from 10:30 to 11:15.
I really think that might be part of the joke.
I think that's so funny.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. You have a very small window to talk to her.
And also, they're not even she's not working. Like, she makes her own hours, and that's about as much as she wants to do.
We learn that Mrs. Deagle is a stereotypical mean old cat lady.
Right.
Which seems like a typical 80s explanation for why she hates dogs so much.
Mm-hmm.
And probably also why she's a cold bitch.
Right.
But
see,
like,
okay.
There's nothing wrong with liking cats, and there's also nothing wrong with loving all animals equally. Because they are precious.
We probably have said this on the show at some point because we have covered things like cats don't dance and all dogs go to heaven. But most cat people also like dogs. The vast majority.
Vast majority.
I have more friends with cats than dogs, but all of my friends with cats like dogs and would have them if their situation allowed.
It's the hardcore dog people that don't like cats.
Correct. I know plenty of dog people who despise cats for no reason other than the fact that they're not dogs.
They're not dogs, right.
So that's number one stereotype that we really have to clear up here while we have the microphone. And
we have the microphone.
You don't have the microphone. This is my show, so I'm going to stand up on my soapbox and say my things. The other thing that's very important that I say here is that as we've been on this theme of it's a class war, we need to look at the ultra wealthy. We need to be paying attention to the people who are actually pulling the strings, right?
Yeah.
I would say this is probably my one gripe with the way that they attempted to make this point in Gremlins.
Yeah.
Overlapping that class war strong message with the stereotype of an old cat lady. Because one of these things is not like the others. One of these things is true, and one of these is categorically false, and not only categorically false, but perpetuated by the patriarchy, which is cat ladies, women above a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
That whole dynamic and that whole dialogue is a patriarchal weapon to dismiss, disarm, disengage women We treat them like, oh, teen girls, teeny bopper girls, when we're kids. We've had that conversation many times with all of my like reformed tomboy conversation. But also, once they are old enough to be credible in their field, to have earned credentials, to have earned a place in society, to have money, to have anything, then we dismiss them because they're an old crazy cat lady just talking to her cats. So they want to have it both ways, but both of those ways equate to hating women.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
being afraid.
Could it not have been like a cantankerous old white man?
It could.
But it wasn't. And neither were many of the other movies that we watched.
That's what I'm going to be when I'm older and I have all my cats. I'm going to be a cantankerous old white man.
Yeah.
With a bunch of cats.
Yeah. Then you'll be the stereotype for a change.
But I'll probably also have like a bunch of dogs and like a raccoon.
And
like
probably money.
Goats, chickens.
Although Miss Deagle has money too.
Yeah.
It's just.
I plan to have money.
They're not mutually exclusive. And like I said, that would be my one gripe. If they just didn't play into one stereotype that's so harmful while they are kind of handing us a stereotype or like a trope or an idea that is very powerful and that we could all stand to learn from.
Right. I think so.
They undermined themselves when you're looking at this in 2024.
Not all dogs are boys and not all cats are girls either. I think that's an important distinction.
Valid. Because we need to be clear
I grew up with that thinking like, well, how do they reproduce?
You listen to the cartoons.
Yeah, I just kind of like took it for granted. I was like, I
got past that.
That doesn't make any sense.
Balto really taught me a lot in that regard.
Yeah.
There were plenty of female dogs.
Which,
my bitches.
Tom from Tom and Jerry, that never crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
He's a male
cat. Tomcat.
I think we've talked about cats and dogs enough.
All that I could think of, though, all of this came to me later, as I was reflecting, digesting. The things that I was thinking in the moment as I watched the screen were, save the kitties. Please don't let the Gremlins get the kitties.
Don't eat the cats.
Please don't eat the cat.
Right. I mean, this scene, along with the movie theater scene that we're about to get to, lived in my mind rent-free as a kid.
You were worried about the cats too?
Well, not the cats, more so what happens to Mrs. Deagle. But when I was, this began when I was so young that one, this movie still scared me, but also I couldn't even remember where this scene came from, like what movie. I just remember what happens to Mrs. Deagle. I love it so much. I just remember we used to laugh so hard at this scene because it's ridiculous. In her own Scrooge-like way, Deagle also hates the Christmas carolers that come to her doorstep, and confronting them with a bucket of water, learns that they are gremlins in disguise. She seems to think that they're demons, though, or something, like coming to get her. She's like, "You're coming to get me. I'm not ready. I'm not ready."
Well, I think this is a play on like she's very, very old, so the underworld is coming for her, like hellhounds. You know what I mean? There are hellhounds on my heels. Like, they're coming for me. My time is up. Like, it gives that sort of impression.
I think, she does think that
she's very old and she recognizes that she has been on the naughty list for a while.
To put it simply. Yeah, she thinks they're like little devils. She really does.
I think, a hellhound is a potential.
Makes me think of the shadow demons from Ghost. Those were so scary.
Yeah, that. Yep. God, I love that movie. Demons are scary, but Swayze.
Swayze be swayzin'. And so terrified of what these creatures are going to do to her, she tries to outrun death, apparently.
Many of us do.
She clambers back into her stair lift,
stair climber,
which has been hot-wired by another gremlin to zip back up the stairs at breakneck speed and launch Mrs. Deagle out the upstairs window, and down will come Deagle, stair lift and all.
Nice. I was sitting here trying to make a joke about Jack Black work.
Hey.
Trying so hard.
That's
some ladies on their stair climber.
Don't go.
No. I don't have it. That's the best it is. Just the no. What's her name? Whatever her name is when he's like pining after her up the stairs. Don't go.
So ridiculous.
If you don't know what we're talking about,
just go watch The Office.
You gotta go watch The Office, start to finish.
I used to think about Mrs. Deagle going up those stairs all the time as a kid. It's such a great moment. It is such a good kill.
I'm getting like a crazy allegory moment right here. It's hitting me as we're discussing it. Imagining like, okay, all of these devout, rich, not good people, but people that believe they're going to climb the heavenly stairs one day, if you will.
Sure,
headed up the stairs in their stair lift. It was easy for them. They're climbing the heavenly stairs. They think that they've got it made
Stairway to
in
heaven.
the paradise shade, you know?
Up to those pearly gates.
Only to just be completely launched in the other direction.
Careened.
Like that's some allegory there.
I think that's nice. I think that's really good. You think you're climbing the stairway to heaven, and really you're just meeting the ceiling of hell.
The highway to hell.
Ooh, yeah.
The skyway to hell.
Hey.
The stairway to heaven, the skyway to hell. I knew I would get there.
Scareway to heaven.
That works. We'll keep it.
What a Christmas miracle. Yeah, because we're not being hyperbolic here. When she hits the ground outside, the impact kills her.
Crunch.
She's dead. She died.
Dead.
The gremlins murder her.
They do.
And I think that's pretty dark.
That is pretty dark.
Yeah. Alex Gerzo says,
when Miss Deagle is faced with the gremlins, she can't defend herself. She's so busy lording herself over others, she has no idea how to face a crisis, and her miserable personality ensures she's got no one to help her. When the gremlins cathartically shoot her motorized chair out the window, she's a victim of her own cruelty as much as of the gremlins' mischief.
So, like, did she deserve to be killed in that way? No, probably not.
Does anyone?
Did she have it coming?
Right.
It's a different question.
Oh, I could ask that question about some other current events right now. Myself. I could ask the same
Did they deserve to be killed that way?
Deserve to be killed that way, but
probably not.
But did they have it
But did they have it coming?
Different question.
I don't want to go to jail, Kaylin. I don't want to be arrested.
I don't either.
I don't want the FBI at my door,
oh my God.
That's why we can't ask. We can't really answer these questions.
No, but the Darklings know the answers.
A few things I don't need at my doorstep. The Men in Black. The Black-Eyed Children, the FBI, the CIA,
Caroling Gremlins.
the IRS, Caroling Gremlins. I don't need any of these things on my doorstep. Wolves, absolutely no wolves.
Hellhounds.
No X's. Many of the gremlin gimmicks and antics in general are one-off little vignettes. They hide in the USPS Dropbox. They make all the traffic lights green. They cut the brakes on the sheriff's cruiser. And they break into the radio station to attack Rockin' Ricky Rialto on the air.
Rockin' Ricky's getting fed up with all this Orson Welles crap.
And they end up all raising fresh hell at Dory's Tavern, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, and holding Kate hostage. There are so many little moments here that I can't even name them all. You know, there's a card game going on in one corner.
Drinking, just drunk.
Arcade video games in another.
Smoking, gambling. You could call it All Dogs Go to Heaven if you wanted to.
You really could. There's a noir gremlin interrupted by a puppet show gremlin.
Gremlin in drag.
Yeah. There's a breakdancing gremlin, a flash dancing gremlin, and a flasher gremlin.
Hey.
Who opens his trench coat to flash Kate. It's one of the more popular gremlins that you can buy as gifts now, which is really funny.
All of these gremlins gathered together, obviously, and the very 80s nature of the whole scene, it makes me think of Labyrinth.
Yeah,
with all of Jareth's goblins. We're missing a gremlin king.
That's true.
Where's
Gremlin
Bowie
king
when you need him?
Oh, he'd come back from the dead to be the gremlin king.
He probably would.
And it's ironic that Kate gets flashed by one of these because it's a similar way that she escapes by flashing the camera, the Polaroid camera. Calm down, guys. This isn't Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I was just gonna say, what movie are we talking about again?
She finds the camera and uses it to make her way to the door, and that's about the time that Billy shows up in a very hocus pocus sunrise fashion, blasting his high beams through the front windows and blinding the gremlins just long enough for Kate to escape.
And notice the bright light is used as a weapon as well.
It is.
We can be the light in the darkness. with our flashlights.
That's a really good point. You don't just search the darkness, you can beat the darkness.
Can eliminate it momentarily, temporarily.
That's true.
In little pockets of time.
And Billy, Kate, and Gizmo run for the bank. And this is the quiet moment where Kate tells Billy about how her dad died. But when they emerge from the bank in a little while, they find the streets empty.
Where did they all go?
It'll be lights. Bet they're all together someplace dark.
They're all together.
And I don't know how, but the reveal of where they are feels like a punchline.
It does.
In its own way.
Probably because it's a Spielberg film, and it's just very Spielberg to think theater when you think of a dark place.
Yes, satisfied with having fully terrorized the town, the Gremlins all pile into the movie theater, where they somehow manage to load a reel into the projector and begin watching Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
What are they doing?
We're watching Snow White. And they love it.
And they love it.
And they love it.
So good.
I also think it probably feels like a punchline because, you know, Spielberg is building this for the box office. And I can only imagine as they're creating the scene, as they're making it behind the scenes, they're imagining not the home video watcher, but the crowd gathered in the theater to watch Gremlins.
Yeah.
And in this moment, as we talked about in part one, where like even the puppeteers and all of the special effects team were realizing, oh, these are parodies of people whenever they were like creating the costumes and everything for the caroling Gremlins.
Yeah.
Spielberg and Chris Columbus, the entire team, got to have this moment of like, we're about to literally reflect Western society back to Western society.
Back on itself. Wow.
In the moment. Like, people watching on one side of the screen are going to be looking into the screen at Gremlins watching a screen, you know?
I need someone to go back in time and be a photographer up on the stairs on the side to capture that shot of the audience watching Gremlins and having the shot, from the screen back at all the Gremlins looking at each other.
Or we could probably get it photoshopped where it's like the Are You Afraid of the Dark going into the screen where we see both sides. Like when the screen is in the middle and we see Gremlins on one side and people on the other.
Oh my God. That is so fun.
Yeah.
That's such a good time. That's a good point. I think you're right about that.
Society
he was always looking ahead.
Needs to look
things
back
like that.
At itself. And yeah, like I said, they weren't considering necessarily, I mean, it was a thing, but I'm sure it wasn't what filmmakers were picturing. Nowadays, we're making movies, we're thinking about people streaming it at their house. We're imagining people are going to end up watching it on their phone. You know what I mean? Like filmmaking as a whole, we're thinking so differently about it when in Spielberg's mind, I can only imagine that he could only imagine that box office big moment in the theater.
It wouldn't have the same effect. It wouldn't have the same impact today.
Mm-mm.
You wouldn't be able to like picture yourself in that theater.
No, but to me, the commentary is the best part. I'm just like, hey, look, like we're showing you, look at yourselves. Look at yourselves.
You Gremlins.
Glorifying violence, like all of the above, you know. Look at it.
I think you just want us a podcast award.
Ooh, thanks.
That's good. It's good stuff.
Thanks. I try.
I'll give you one anyway. I don't know.
Wow.
This scene here, this is one of my absolute favorites from the movie. It's just so funny how such monstrous little creatures could still enjoy something as innocent as a Disney cartoon. You know, they sing along to Hi-Ho, eating all the popcorn and the candy they can find at concessions. And if they wouldn't actively try to kill you, going to the movies with a bunch of Gremlins would be such a great time.
It would be a good time. Going to the movies with a bunch of gizmos.
Ooh, that'd be so cute.
Like Mogwai.
No, a slumber party with Mogwai.
Aw, yeah. You can watch movies at the slumber party too.
And presumably because they've eaten all the candy at the concession stand, Stripe sneaks off to the department store in search of more candy. But while he's away, Billy sets a trap for all the distracted theater goers. In a somewhat Looney Tunes fashion, Billy pulls the gas line and lights a fuse that effectively rigs the place to blow, while giving them enough time to escape. But dude, when the Gremlins come after them, when they realize that they're there, that image of their approaching shadows on the screen is so haunting to me.
Very Spielberg.
They're clawing their way through the fabric and everything. We briefly forget how vicious and violent they are.
Yeah.
You know, until they notice us and they start coming after us again.
You just said it. We briefly forget how vicious and violent they are. Because people who are vicious and violent, A, aren't always vicious and violent to everyone.
Right.
And B, They hide it very well when they need to.
They do.
And sometimes we forget.
We do. We forget. We're a forgetful bunch, us humans.
We are.
It's just such a masterful, juxtaposition between a genuinely hilarious moment and its spine-chilling conclusion once reality sets back in. And it's also a great send-off for the bulk of these gremlins because the place goes up in flames, taking the horde down with it. And quickly nearing the film's climax, Gizmo spots Stripe in the department store window. And he's the last one, sure, but he's also the most cunning and savage. Mm-hmm. He's the leader, as they say over and over, to make sure we got it. Stripe is the leader.
Who is Stripe again? Who's Stripe?
He's the leader of the Gremlins.
Oh.
Stripe.
Got it.
Stripe, because he has the white mohawk.
That's why he's called Stripe?
Stripe.
No way.
He's the leader. He's the leader of the other Gremlins.
They followed somebody with a mohawk?
Unheard of.
Counterculture.
And here's where the final showdown takes place, in the garden center. But not before a 10-minute game of Catch Me If You Can in the dark, full of gimmicks like Stripe filming himself with the camera so his face pops up on all the TVs. That used to be a thing, kids. There were a bunch of TVs all on the wall, and you could go be in front of the camera and everybody could see you and stuff.
I'm also thinking of the Brady Bunch movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
They do that
Brady
too.
Bunch, they do.
I also have to revisit your sentence where you said the showdown in the garden center. Is that what you said? Or what was it that you said?
This is where the final showdown takes place in the garden center.
Final showdown takes place in the garden center. Mm-hmm. This is also the neurodivergent experience with Walmart.
Yeah.
You get there to the end. The final showdown takes place in the garden center.
That's
when
me
you're
at Lowe's.
Am I going to get out of here alive? That's when you have that questioning yourself and God in the garden center.
In the garden center.
Often.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So Stripe also turns on a bunch of toys in the toy section. But my very favorite thing that he does is he hides behind all the stuffed animals on the shelves. Mm-hmm. Not just stuffed animals, but he hides behind a stuffed E.T. Mm-hmm. This is Spielbergception, people.
My cousin had one of those E.T., the big giant E.T. dolls that was very soft, but disconcertingly large. Life-size E.T. doll, basically.
Yeah.
And he always wore a polo shirt. One of my cousin's polo shirts. That's what my cousin dressed him in. Huh. So when I think of E.T., I think of that doll with his noodle limp arms wearing a prep school polo shirt.
E.T. Doesn't E.T. wear a polo? What does he wear?
He does wear a polo, but it was it was my cousin's polo that he put him in.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Did you pay attention to the loudspeaker that Kate turns on when she's trying to find the light switch?
Wait, I don't know.
Well, the voice recording on the speaker promotes an imported Mikado snowplow.
They're importing the farm tools now.
Yes, but a snowplow specifically.
Specifically a snowplow for Mr. Futterman.
Snowplow for Mr. Futterman. Mm-hmm. And it's over in the garden center.
Got it.
Kate also manages to turn on the water fountain in the garden center. Come on, Kate, you had one job. Find a light switch. Just turn the lights on.
We're all just trying to turn the lights on. Sometimes it's harder than others.
It's also not her fault that there's a whole sub-panel breaker box situation with the light switches.
It's not. It's also not her fault that she's the lone final girl fighting the revolution against these crazy monsters in a department store.
No. The reality is...
We never think we're going to be in that circumstance.
You never think you're going to find yourself.
I've never studied the schematics for a breaker box at a department store.
So the next time you're in the garden center, just take a look around. There might be a fountain. There might be a light switch. There might be a gremlin hiding in the Christmas tree.
And you never know when one of them will come in handy.
You never can tell.
In a world where...
And armed with the aforementioned wooden baseball bat, Billy goes up against Stripe, who continues to use superior weapons against him. He tosses circular saw blades like throwing stars, a baseball pitching machine, a crossbow.
So violent.
Eventually a gun.
So violent.
But for now, a chainsaw.
And
no offense to the filmmakers, but I'm pretty sure a chainsaw would cut right through that bat like butter. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe cold butter, but butter nonetheless. Mm-hmm. Luckily, Kate finds the panel with all the light switches in this exact moment, or else Billy would have been toast.
You can't let go of those food references.
Buttered toast. I'm really hungry right now. All I had for lunch was a smoothie.
You're losing it. I'm losing a grip on my jokes. Spielberg's losing a grip on his third act. Like he does sometimes. No offense.
Sometimes.
No offense.
Sometimes.
It's just chaos.
The third act is never the fun act. It's always the build-up that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Of any
As
movie.
we've said,
Elf,
yeah.
Third act in Elf?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need it.
I know. Could
I don't
take or
need it.
leave. Titanic?
That one really sinks the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Third
Sure
act
does.
in Titanic. And Stripe hops up onto the fountain and starts getting himself all nice and wet. It's oddly sensual.
It is.
Makes me very uncomfortable how he handles it. And I guess we all inherently understand that a Mogwai makes more Mogwai, but a gremlin makes more gremlins. Do you think that's what's going to happen?
I think that logics, you're making logic from the illogical. I wrote in my notes that it sounded, when they said that it sounded like they said making theological logical.
Making theological logical. That actually can't be done.
Some more subliminal messaging.
It would appear here that all is lost. A black moment that makes us feel like the nightmare is beginning again. And all would be lost if Gizmo wasn't living out his sweet little race car fantasies and driving himself to the rescue
Vroom, vroom.
in his pink Chevrolet Corvette, which is also known as the Gizmobile.
The Gizmobile.
And because this is still the 80s, and the trope of sunlight killing the monster hasn't been played out yet, this film gets to enjoy its very own Nosferatu moment.
What a world! What a world!
Where, just at the last second, the sunrise claims its next victim. Gizmo successfully pulls the shades over the window, bathing Stripe in the morning light, and begins straight up melting before our very eyes. It's so gross.
You try defying gravity now.
And Stripe's decayed form here falls into the fountain.
Gross.
And as Billy approaches,
so gross.
As Billy approaches, his skeleton flings itself back out of the fountain at Billy in one final attempt at attack.
That melting skeleton thing, that whole moment would have haunted me as a kid. Like I would have dreamt about it if I had watched that as a child.
Yeah, I thought about it often.
But I would have, that would have got me.
If I'm not mistaken, Chris Wallace, the guy who designed all the Gremlins, and spent pretty much the entire shoot making more in his workshop while they were filming.
Hence us spending most of our part one talking about him.
Yes. This was like one of the most complicated things that they did, was having to make all these various stages of Stripe melting to death, because you see a number of different versions of Stripe in this this moment. They cut back and forth.
It paid off, because damn, that might be the most haunting part of the film.
You know, Stripe's skeleton lands on the floor and promptly turns to like this bubbling goo, which was done using straws and balloons, which I think were being blown up by mouth. There was like a fake floor, and they were beneath it.
You know, I think
blowing
you're right.
air into the bubbles, like intentionally, so they could control it. Which makes me think, do you remember the plastic bubble stuff that we had in the 90s?
Yes. It was like advertised on like Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
where it was just like this gel
the
stuff.
plastic goo that you could stick a straw into and blow a bubble. It would make a bubble. Yeah, I remember those commercials.
Me too.
Big time. I think it was that same kind of concept. The latex sort of blowing bubbles and stuff. But that is the end of Stripe. And soon after, the Peltzers are all home and resting. Kate is there too, because she and Billy kissed in the department store, so they're officially movie official. That's how that works.
All it takes is a kiss.
They're all watching the news reporter blame the evening's events on mass hysteria.
Conflicting eyewitness reports concerning little green men.
And with all the stereotypical mystique of a Chinese man in a Hollywood film, the elderly shopkeeper with his glass eye appears in their living room without a sound. He's coming to take Gizmo away.
You're not ready.
Yeah. He fusses at Rand for his arrogant sense of entitlement, saying,
"You do with Mogwai what your society has done with all of nature's gifts. You do not understand. You are not ready."
Yep.
And he's also upset that they let Gizmo watch television.
You teach him to watch television?
I thought that was kind of wholesome and fun.
Taking us back to traditional values.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me because they've kind of made it a point. They made it a point as we were talking through in part one, like all the behind the scenes stuff. Like they're not shy. They're telling you what they want to tell you. They tell you a few times, then they show you, this is a wonderful life. It's a wonderful life. Hey, it's right there on TV. Do you see it? You know, they kind of did it over and over. And then in this moment, it's like the culmination of all of that, where they're like, your society is screwed. Like, your society is bad. Your society is doing bad things. You know, it's handing it to you. And then at the end, they come out and say it word for word, just in case you didn't get our subtle metaphors and subliminal messaging. This is what we meant.
It's just saying it like it is. And in this poignant final moment, Billy must let Gizmo go, no matter how much he loves him now.
Kind of like E.T.
Man, Spielberg he just had the same story to tell.
They make you love the thing, and then they say, but you don't belong together.
Artists have one story to tell, or writers always have one story to tell, and they just tell it over and over again.
That ain't true for Spielberg.
Tim Burton. The reality is that just as there is no gremlin without the mogwai, there's also no mogwai without the gremlin.
Right.
They are one and the same. And it stands to reason that anyone living in our brash, capitalistic Western society cannot appropriately care for a creature like Gizmo because we are far too distracted and careless and irresponsible.
To hear, one has only to listen.
We've closed off that ability. We don't listen. We don't know how to hear.
No, we sure don't.
Things like this that are natural and special. And this is why we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things. Mog. Why?
And Gizmos always broke my heart. It breaks my heart now. I remember tearing up as a kid just thinking about it sometimes. You know, having to let go of something so special and precious seemed impossible. And I still struggle with goodbyes today. I really just don't like them.
Same.
And because Rand thinks that this was somehow his story to tell, he bookends his narration here with a whimsical, ominous warning.
Yeah. A white man who wasn't there commandeering the narrative?
I'm just going to take this and tell it the way I want to tell it.
Well, that's the story. So if your air conditioner goes on the fritz, or your washing machine blows up, or your video recorder conks out, before you call the repairman, turn on all the lights, check all the closets and cupboards, look under all the beds, because you never can tell. There just might be a gremlin in your house.
I personally think that this concluding narration is flawed, but not at the fault of Chris Columbus or the filmmakers. Because technically, as a horror film, this is a really fun final warning.
Yeah.
And such a memorable conclusion to a film like this. I think it is great. I think the flaw here comes from Rand, who has learned nothing from this experience.
I warned you. With Mogwai comes much responsibility. But you didn't listen. And you see what happens.
I didn't mean it.
I didn't mean it. You know, I don't know. I didn't know. You didn't mean it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
you in the front.
I'm raising my hand. I think that's the point.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't a flaw on the part of the filmmakers. It was Rand's flaw. That is the point.
And Rand's flaw was the filmmaker's point.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I agree that it's a great ending.
Yes. I think everything you just said, all of the text is in the subtext. And for that to be his takeaway, it's like, well, it's not even like you didn't even learn. You weren't there. You didn't learn the lesson. You didn't learn the lesson, but you're trying to teach me the lesson, you know?
Right. His final warning here should have been something like, next time someone who knows better than you warns you not to do something, don't do it.
Right.
Instead, he recommends checking your home for gremlins the next time your technology isn't working right.
Right. It makes it a little bit of a happenstance.
Yes, right.
He's kind of taking his role. He who brought the gremlin into their world in the first place. He's totally dismissing what he did and how he caused the whole problem.
Yeah. He's suggesting that sometimes gremlins just happen to you at no fault of your own.
And while that may be true, it sure as wasn't true for him.
Well, yeah, he's saying there's nothing you could have done to prevent this. You know, it just
says the only nation where this happens. Says the only group of people where this is a problem.
Shit happens sometimes, man. You know,
yeah.
It's like, just be careful, keep an eye out. It's like, no, just listen to the person who's warning you not to do something that you don't understand.
Or look within. Just look within. Your problems might be some internal gremlins you need to sort out.
I got those internal gremlins.
Oh, God, you know I do.
That's for sure. I do. I think this is a perfect conclusion to this film for all these reasons. Mm-hmm. It's made even more perfect, like we're saying, because Rand has learned nothing and has stuck to his willful ignorance. Totally convinced there's nothing he could have done differently.
Yep. Which
effectively guarantees the sequel, does it not?
History repeats.
My next line is, those who learn nothing from history are doomed to repeat it. So yeah, I think Rand Peltzer is a worse father figure than Grandpa Joe. I really do. Because at least Grandpa Joe had his redemption at the end, where he fought for Charlie's, reward. And Rand is just like,
what? Huh?
You mean we can't reproduce?
I just thought it was cute.
You mean we can't make millions?
So I got my kid a Christmas present. All I did was get my kid a Christmas present. So sue me. That's all I did. That's all I wanted to do was bring a little joy.
I was just looking out for my kid.
It's all my fault, I guess. I guess I'm just the world's worst dad for getting a Christmas present for my kid.
So what would you rather me do? Not get a Christmas present for my kid? Is that what you want me to do?
That's what I'm hearing.
Huh, Lynn? Is that what I should have done, Lynn? You're never satisfied.
And then she takes out the kitchen knife.
That would be such a good credit sequence. Oh my God. She takes the knife out. Oh my God. That's so good. Somebody make a how it should have ended.
Gremlins 3.
I did have some thoughts. I thought, one really fun way that they could have redeemed his character just a little bit, or at least give his absence some purpose when he's gone for the rest of the film. They could have repurposed his inventions as like the perfect weapons to use against gremlins. That would have been fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a little bit of a, I don't know. It was kind of almost there, Well,
they used the Peltzer mixer,
right?
But they didn't use any of the other ones.
Right.
I was sad to realize. I made a note. I was like, do any of Rand's inventions get used?
Sorry, Hoyt. Sorry you're caught in this crossfire. All you were doing was singing about bullfrogs and stuff.
And that's the movie.
That's it.
And you had some stuff prepared for the box office information. And
prepared is a generous term, but I did skim Wikipedia when I was researching for part one.
The holidays got to be generous.
Just looking at box office numbers, etc., etc.,
etc.
Gremlins was produced on an $11 million budget. And as we talked about before, it premiered on the same day as Ghostbusters, and Gremlins ranked second at the box office with $12.5 million in its first weekend, which was $1.1 million less than Ghostbusters. So it was second, but not by much.
Not by much.
By the end of its American screenings on November 29th of that year, 1984, it had grossed $168,459 domestically.
Wow.
This made it the fourth highest grossing film of the year behind Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which we also talked about a little bit in part one.
Yeah.
It also did really well internationally, and most critics were on board once they understood what the film was about, including Ebert and Siskel that we talk about a lot. Most critics got on board with the satire and tried to help audiences understand that as well.
Mm-hmm.
As with most pretty dark things, there were conversations about, is this movie going to make kids put their pets in microwaves?
Right.
How much are we influencing kids? And a lot of the response to that was no, but Gremlins are, like we said last time, kind of acting themselves as that vicarious outlet. We're watching these little monsters make the mayhem that we know we can't make ourselves, but it's really fun to imagine.
And that makes a lot of sense.
It also found success, like most cult films, in home media with releases on VHS in 1985, on DVD in 1997, and then in 2002 they did a special edition DVD, which is where a lot of the commentary comes from that I worked into my part one research.
Nice.
As we said in part one, the Gizmo Furby toy was released in 1999, and there were a ton of other merchandise tie-ins for not only Gremlins, but most of Spielberg's films of the time. Action figures, trading cards, stuffed animals, you name it, there was probably a Gremlins version.
Yeah.
And then there was also a novel adaptation, not to be confused with Roald Dahl's Gremlins, published by Avon Books in June of 1984 to coincide with the release of the film.
Yeah, wow.
This novel explains that Mogwai were created as gentle, contemplative creatures by a scientist on an alien world. However, it was discovered that their physiology was unstable, and the end result was only 1 in 10,000 Mogwai would retain their sweet, loving demeanor. The rest would change into creatures the novel refers to as mischievous.
Oh.
The minority Mogwai, they call him the one in the 10,000, are immortal by human standards.
It's wild.
There was an Atari game and several video games after that, a Game Boy Color release, and even all the way into the Wii and the Nintendo DS got Gremlins treatment.
Playing a game, killing some gremlins.
And like we've said a couple times, it also spawned the sequel, which was probably, arguably, more successful in cult circles than even the original because it does such a thorough job of making fun of the first film and making fun of the horror genre as a whole.
It's been a long time since I've seen that one. I need to watch it.
I don't know that I ever have, even still. I've seen a lot of clips, though, because as I'm pulling images for social media, for Instagram, as we're talking about our Gremlins episodes, I have to look and go, is this from Gremlins or is this from Gremlins 2?
Right.
I don't know where the scenes are from sometimes, but yeah, that's the reception.
That's some good stuff, man. Well, to send us off on a bit more of a thoughtful note, Alex Gurzo wraps up his comparison of Gremlins with It's a Wonderful Life by emphasizing what life will be like in Kingston Falls after the death of Mrs. Deagle. Mm-hmm. It genuinely feels like, ding dong, the wicked witch is dead.
Which we've also learned you can't take at face value.
Again, this is true.
If we learned anything this autumn. We're holding space for that, you know?
We are.
I'm speaking in memes, don't mind me.
He says that the townsfolk, especially Mr. Corbin at the bank, will now have the wherewithal and the confidence to live freely and happily without her punishing policies.
People like Miss Deagle and Mr. Potter before her will eventually die out, alone and unloved. But the good-hearted will survive and put things right again. That's a pretty nice way of wishing the audience a Merry Christmas.
It's just like
if
this...
only it really worked that
quaint
way.
Little like, whoa, this is the point. You know, hey, happy ending for everyone. The evil people got their just desserts, got their own figgy pudding, and
gremlin pudding.
Their gremlin pudding.
And in this world of Kingston Falls, they did, sort of.
And guys, we too can't think of a better way to wish you all a happy holidays than to strip Gremlins down to its gooey skeletal center and remind you once again that if the holidays get you down, you are definitely not alone.
Not at all.
And if you ever needed any more convincing of that fact, now you know that Chris Columbus and Steven Spielberg made an entire blockbuster picture about that exact feeling that you're feeling back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. You're never really alone. So happy holidays, or not.
Or not.
I say it every year. I'm more of a winter solstice guy myself.
We've celebrated a couple of those in a good way.
I love the old world Yuletide type stuff. I like old world Christmas. You know, I'd love a Bavarian snowman, but I don't think I'd try to kill a dog if it broke.
I should hope not.
You know, I'd be upset.
Right. But you're not going to let that drive you.
No, that's the thing. Feel your feelings. It's okay.
It is okay.
But you don't have to act on them.
It is okay.
You are not your feelings.
Or better yet, feel your feelings so that you don't end up with those violent urges.
Right.
If you don't suppress all your feelings, maybe the violence won't even occur to you.
Yeah, you know, I think the Gremlins just sort of sat back, taking a moment, taking some deep breaths.
Some mindfulness practice.
Felt their feelings, yeah. Taking the room, the smell.
That's the scene that we would have today. It would be like a dark yoga studio with incense.
Oh my God. Yes, that's a gimmick because one of the Gremlins is a yoga teacher, a yoga instructor. Gremlin.
Hey.
That's so good. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Wow.
So I hope this finds you all well.
2 parts. Lots of Gremlins. We hope that you are all doing as well as can be. If you're having a great holiday, we are genuinely so happy for you. And if you're not, then you're not alone.
Get it. Right there with you.
We can't believe. I truly cannot believe. I say this every year. I say this every month. I can't believe that 2024 is ending.
Yeah.
2025 is just around the corner. And we are once again just so grateful for another year in your ears. So thank you for being here with us. If you want more of us in your ears, can't understand why you would, but if you do, you can follow us on our social media at That's Pretty Dark Podcast on Instagram, at That's Pretty Dark on TikTok. For now, I've been saying that for a while, but the The ban is looming large now. If you just feel generous in these holiday times, you can join us on Patreon. Where at, Christian?
At patreon.com/TPD podcast.
Where we post bonus content like cutting room floor, all the bloopers and stuff that our general Darkling friends were worried that you would disown us if you heard. You can hear those if you pay for them on our Patreon. It's just $5 a month. But it helps enable us to continue creating all of this nonsense that you're hearing.
Yeah, and Christmas is a time for spooky stuff too. It is the original time for ghost stories. So I've got some ghost stories up there on the Patreon as well.
There are, yeah.
You can go listen to my sultry tones, read to you some scary stories.
And if you just want to chat, if you're just looking to talk with us, we did a poll recently because one of our generous, lovely Darklings left a beautiful review. Hi, Amber. She left a beautiful review for us on Apple Podcasts where she talked about wanting to talk back. And when I posted that online, there was like a significant percentage of you that said they were talking back. So if this is your moment to shine, just going to pull a Steve Burns for a second. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hello.
How are you, friends?
Welcome to the show.
We can't quite hear you, but we know you're talking back.
You're live on the air.
But yeah, if you want to chat with us and talking back to the radio or the phone or whatever you're listening on isn't cutting it for you, you can email us at that'sprettyddarkpodcast@gmail.com and tell us just anything that's on your heart or mind. We would love to hear from you.
And somebody else also asked, where's part 2 of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? And
oh dear,
it just didn't make it to YouTube.
Yeah,
that was on YouTube specifically. So if you're missing any content on YouTube that you know should be there,
yeah, if you've noticed that we've moved on from a topic and you don't think we should have, it's probably that YouTube didn't like it and copyrighted us. And you can find it on, if you're not on another streaming platform, you don't have another access to another streaming platform, you can always access our episodes on that'sprettyddark.com.
Yes. All of our episodes are there, so
you can play it directly in your browser there. So might be a little less convenient. Sorry about that.
It is, but where there's a will, there's a way, and we believe in you.
There's a Mog way.
There's a Mog way. That's good. I think on that note, we realize that I think we should
can't do better than that.
Wrap up this holiday season. Looking forward to another great next year. A lot of exciting things, and catch us pretty soon with our annual New Year's Campfire Chat.
New Year's Campfire Chat. That's where we just no script, all vibes.
That's like our acoustic
breaks.
Session.
It's like a TPD acoustic set. So
we're all sitting down.
Yeah, we'll be up in your ears for that soon too.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. See you on the other side of all this chaos.
Wherever that is.
There just might be a gremlin in your house.
It's Buzz.
It's just our cat.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark, written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettyddarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.